Hello and welcome to Adelaide, South Australia. That is the Superdrome, known affectionately as the Armadillo, for the UCI Track Nations Cup. It's the third and final night here in Adelaide for the first of 3 Nations Cups for 2024. All the points accumulated, getting qualifications for the Olympic Games in Paris. Adelaide, South Australia, so many fantastic sporting precincts, and of course the World Tour for both the men and women on the road kicked off a couple of weeks ago with the Tour Down Under. It's the track cyclists now that are showing the world what they are capable of in an Olympic year. The wine regions of South Australia, the Barossa Valley, Clare Valley, and to the south of Adelaide is McLaren Vale, world famous. And the Adelaide Oval, cricket and different variations of football, very popular. Inside the velodrome here, though, it's very toasty this evening. My name is Scott McGrory. Joining me in commentary is Kate Bates. And the third and final night, Kate, we've had 2 fantastic days of racing so far, and it's quite toasty in here tonight, ready for a final and a very warm finish to the competition.
It has. It's been a sensational couple of days. We are on day 3. Today, the mercury's hit 39 degrees outside where we are here in Jepp's Cross. That means for this beautiful Nordic Pine velodrome, fast conditions, but not a lot of time conditions. But I can say that it's more pleasant to ride an omnium or a sprint on a fast track.
And we can just see just the one black skid mark there on the piece of track that we've selected. There have been a couple of other scuffs to the track over the last couple of days. Unfortunately, with the men's and women's keirins, we've seen a couple of crashes. And we did see also in the women's sprint last night, with the women's keirin coming up tonight, the women's sprint quarterfinals, Elise Andrews, the current world keirin champion, did have a crash and has a minor fracture to her collarbone and a very mild concussion as well. So unfortunately for her, she will not be racing tonight as the keirin world champ, but a speedy recovery we're wishing her. That's the program for this evening. Big racing tonight, that's for sure. We start the evening session with the women's omnium scratch race before we go into the men's semi-finals of the sprints. The qualifying was earlier this morning with Matthew Richardson, the Australian, the fastest qualifier. Women's keirins, as I mentioned, without the world champion Elise Andrews, as she is trying to recover for the next World Cup in Hong Kong. And then through to the men's Madison final. And we'll wrap up all of the sprints keirins and concluding tonight with the women's omnium points race to finish off the evening. Georgia Baker, second in the women's Madison last night, along with Alex Manley. She's representing Australia here in the omnium. And Ali Wollaston from New Zealand already has 2 gold medals to her name in the elimination and the team pursuit. Can she add a 3rd gold medal here on this 3rd night of competition? World champion is the one to get over the top of, perhaps, Jennifer Valente.
It is Jennifer Valente. We saw her in action in the Madison last night, riding with Lily Williams. And Lily, very new to the velodrome. There's Cam Meyer holding up Katie Archbold. And we can see Georgia Baker, the Australian, in the background. But the American team put on an exceptionally good show. And so certainly it was pretty hot competition. Now the omnium here, it kicks off with a 30-lap scratch race, 7.5 kilometres. At the last 3 major competitions, World Championships, European Championships, and if we also reflect back to the Olympics, Jennifer Valente, Olympic champion and world champion last year. Katie Archbold has come off fresh form at the Europeans. And Scott, she not only won the European Championships in the omnium, she won every event in doing so. At international level, the only rider that has won a scratch race in the omnium is Ali Wollaston. So we've got a pretty crack field for this event in particular. And certainly we know that Valente, Wollaston and Archibald are in very good form.
Yumi Kajihara from Japan is the Asian Continental Champion in the omnium. So she'll be one to watch out for as well. 28 laps to go. 30 laps for the scratch race to get things underway. Fidanza from Italy, the blue colours, swings up. She had a disappointing ride in the elimination a couple of days ago by her standards. So she'll be looking to redeem herself a little bit as well.
So a standalone scratch race in an omnium versus a scratch race in an omnium is raced quite differently, because in omniums, 4 events, the next one will be the tempo, then the elimination, then the points race. It is points race heavy because every point in the points race counts, whereas the first 3 events, the closer to the front you finish the line, the more points you get. And so often we see the scratch race quite conservative, where everyone's just feeling out their legs and getting through the event safely. We saw in the men's omnium last night just how disastrous it can be to come undone in any of the races. They're all bunch races, so it is one bunch race is risky, but 4 even riskier.
There's Yumi, the Asian Continental Champion, riding for Japan, but that is very similar to the World Championship bands, but very narrow, thin ones to signify the Asian Continental Champion. And in the tuck position as well. It's been quite discussed, the position. As you see Yumi around about in the middle of the field, the shortest of the riders there, but with her hands up on top of the bars. And that is completely legal, but the bars have been made specifically for them to be able to get into that aero position. And I know I've been chatting to a lot of the old-timers, I'll put them, including myself, Stuart O'Grady, Brett Aiken, Michael Rogers, who's working for the UCI in terms of safety. A lot of discussion about that hand position and whether it will be allowed to remain going into 2025.
Well, it sounds as though it probably won't be, based on some of the murmurings from the commissaires. But Kajihara she was second at the Olympic Games in Tokyo, an exceptionally proud moment to take an Olympic silver medal in a home games. She was 8th at the World Championships last year. She just didn't have quite as consistent a run through as she did at the Olympic Games. You have to be so consistent. It is of no particular value if you're able to win the scratch race, but then you get 15th in the tempo race or in the elimination, for example. And Kajihara found herself at World Championships in 12th in the elimination, and that cost her quite dearly in the overall scale. Katie Archbold, the Great Britain rider, fresh off form from the European Championship. She won this event there, the Omnium and the scratch race within the Omnium. She's just testing a few legs there, just accelerating and seeing what happens behind.
So she has caused a split in the race, 18 laps to go. Katie is fairly quick, but she's so strong that she wants to hurt the legs of her competitors before they get down to that final sprint. So wanting to make the race as hard as possible. No one else had really picked up the pace to that point. With 17 laps to go, Katie Archibald, the only one showing some intent to try and drive the pace onwards. We have the world champion in Jen Valente. We have the European champion there. There's the European champion right in the middle, Anita Stenberg from Norway, with the white colours and the big, thick light blue bands around the middle. Fidanza from Italy swings through up the top, and Kajihara also very quickly following her up the wheel. Now it's the world champion that goes through on the bottom of the track, but no real pace on now, as you can see. Everyone flared right up the track, 14 laps to go. Short scratch race, only 30 laps, so there's not a lot of room to really make it difficult and try and go on the attack, it must be said. But as we get closer to 10 laps to go, most of the riders start thinking about conserving energy for that final sprint. Sometimes that can create opportunities, hesitation, if you can pick the right moment to go on the attack.
Less likely to have an attack in the first race of an Omnium. In the scratch race, people aren't quite sure how everybody else is feeling, how they're feeling themselves. More conservative strategy is to try and find a good wheel and hold it, even if you don't think that you can prevail in the sprint. Coming in mid-pack by trying to follow one of the consistently good sprinters' wheels can be a pretty solid strategy.
Nia Evans is another one to look out for here. She's in the what we're calling the British Racing green colours, the Union Jack flag, but riding for the team-inspired trade team that Britain have entered. So that gives the British just an extra rider, and we saw it in the women's Madison as well, that gave them 2 extra riders in the women's Madison just to give them some extra depth and training and condition. So really good to have Katie Archibald and Nia Evans from Great Britain in the same race. They are competing against each other, but it just gives them that little bit of extra training and experience at this level. There's Nia just swinging up now in the green colours.
And we can be clear that they aren't colluding, they aren't working together. In fact, this is an opportunity to gain a place for the Olympic Games and the World Championships at the end of the year. So it's a fairly unique opportunity to be able to have more than one athlete from your country out there. But we've seen it on a few occasions at this competition.
They'll come around to get 8 laps to go. All of the riders at the top of the track now. And if there's anyone really not wanting to wait for that final sprint, this would have been the moment to go on the attack. But doesn't look as if that's going to be the case now. Martins from Portugal dragged them down, swung up and got herself up and out of the way. Lara Gillespie from Ireland now high on the track. Swiss rider Yasmin Leshti, second position.
They're really just watching each other for coming into these final laps. They'll come around and see 6 laps to go. I consider a late flyer in this kind of event about 2.5 laps to go, where you can possibly hold on. It's a bit early for that, so people jostling for position more here, taking an opportunity to move up when they can. But we can see it's really tightly packed in there. A lot of wheels almost overlapping. Scott, you've got to have a strong constitution.
Martins again from Portugal drags most of the field down to the bottom of the track, but she doesn't want to be on the front wasting energy. They'll come around to get 4 laps to go. Fidanza goes through for Italy. Where's the world champion, Jen Valente? Where's Ali Wollaston? She did win the scratch race as the first discipline within the Omnium at the World Championships last year. There she is in the black colours. She has 2 gold medals already. Team pursuit and also the elimination. Big move from Katie Archibald up around the outside as well for Great Britain. Come around now to get 3 laps to go.
And this is where positioning is so important. Georgia Baker in the green and gold for Australia also moving up, but a fairly aggressive move is coming from Shi Ling from Chinese Hong Kong. And this is where it really matters, because if you lose your positioning with only 2 laps to go, it's very difficult to get back.
And they'll get the bell when they come around this time, and it's Katie Archibald in a drag race against Lara Gillespie. Here it is now, the last lap, and Archibald's been on the front for a lap and a half now. This is going to be really difficult to sustain this. Georgia Baker in second position as Gillespie starts to fade. Wollaston up around the outside, and Ali Wollaston, 2 gold medals already this weekend, and she's going to start off the Omnium in fine form by winning the scratch race. 4 disciplines within the entire Omnium events, and Ali Wollaston comes out with the victory here, so she'll claim the maximum of 40 points for the win. Katie Archibald, she'll get 38 points for second, but it did show how strong Katie is riding. She just was forced to go to the front so early. Georgia Baker for Australia, she was third across the line. So they're the top 3, Wollaston, Archibald and Baker.
Well, they've got a lot of prestige in this race with the world champion, the European champion from this year and also from last year. We've got the Olympic champion. It really is full of big names.
It's stacked.
It really is stacked. And that's because they have to qualify themselves for the Olympic Games, not only the nations, but also as individuals. We can see that also Nia Evans, who was second in the most recent European Championships a couple of weeks ago. Katie Archibald was the European champion last year. But when you've got so many options like Great Britain do, they are out there just trying to prove their own spot. But it's also because there's not a lot of opportunities to race in an Omnium, and they need that back-to-back racing practice. It's very hard to replicate in a training environment.
So, Ali Wollaston starting off her Omnium in fine form, getting the win in the scratch race ahead of Katie Archibald and Georgia Baker. Tsuyaka Uchino from Japan in 4th place. Petra Sefikova from Czechia. And then it's the European champion Anita Stenberg in 6th place, so 30 points to Stenberg. That's a pretty handy position for her. Lara Gillespie, who was arm wrestling against Katie Archibald into that final lap before fading down to 7th place. But a good result for her riding for Ireland. You see further down the rankings, riders right down towards the back. And unfortunately for Nia Evans, we did talk her up, but she was right down towards the back at the end of that scratch race.
Well, you make a positioning error and it can cost you quite dearly. Jennifer Valente down in 11th. This is a really handy gap for Wollaston, Archibald and Baker. Valente and Evans in particular, and Martina Fidanza, they have got a bit of making up to do now.
Strong ride by Katie Archibald, but an incredibly fast finish from Ali Wollaston. Didn't see a lot of her throughout the scratch race, so she protected herself really well. Men's sprint semi-finals now, and it's Matthew Richardson from Australia, the fastest qualifier, up against Azazul Awang. Awang won the keirin on day 2 of the competition. Matthew Richardson picked up a gold medal in the team sprint on the first night. By his standards, he had a disappointing keirin series. And for Awang, he won that keirin last night in fine form. He was absolutely flying, a man that only 18 months ago had open heart surgery. Quite incredible. There he is, Azazul Awang from Malaysia. He's on good form, riding on confidence, but he does know that Matthew Richardson, the fastest qualifier in this type of race, is going to be really difficult to beat.
Richardson qualifying in 9.696 and Awang 9.584 at the World Championships. Today, 9.499 for Richo and a 9.656. So there is 0.15 of a difference speed, but what I think we learnt last night watching the keirin is it's not just about pure speed for Awang. His tactical nous is just absolutely incredible, and Matty Richo really needs to be on his very best to overcome here. We've had a few movements within the sprint rounds other than what happened in the qualifying, but we're not surprised to see the first and the fourth qualifier riding off here for a spot in the finals.
Heat 2 sees Kaya Ota from Japan up against Matthew Glaitzer, so 2 Aussies. The possibility of racing each other maybe in the final. We'll wait and see. For now, this is a best of 3 competition. So the first race in the best of 3, and it's Awang ducking and diving up and down the track. He has a shadow in Matthew Richardson right at the back wheel, but he dives down underneath now. So Richardson starts to take control. He does want that first position. Now dives down at the bell. 1 lap to go. This is the first in the best of 3 competition, and the gap is opening up for Matthew Richardson. So Richardson leads, and already Awang realising he's not going to be able to close that down. So a very comfortable win there for Matthew Richardson. 1 up in the best of 3. And Awang, we talk about how good he is tactically, didn't do that well that time. He'll have to rethink, come back and have another go.
A very comfortable ride from the Aussie, and he's looked comfortable all morning. I noticed that it didn't matter what round he was winning in, he was waving to the crowd, he was quite confident. He beat Joseph Truman in 2 rounds to progress through. Awang actually knocked out Jack Carlin, the British sprinter, with a very good reputation. He qualified slightly faster, but it was expected to be a pretty tight competition, and Awang took him 2-0 in the quarterfinals. Matty Glaitzer, now he's had quite a progression through, Scott, because he qualified in 11th today, 9.782, but he has progressed through exceptionally well. He beat Vasilius Lendl, one of our higher qualifiers. He qualified in 6th in the 1/8 finals. And then when it came down to the quarterfinals, he beat Nick Schroeter, who also qualified fairly well this morning. So he's had a good run in based on his 11th qualification. You wouldn't have necessarily imagined he would be there. Now he's up against Ota, whose qualifying was 2nd, 9.595. On paper, you would say that Ota is the faster rider, but Glaitzer appears to have a whole lot of momentum in today's sprint competition.
Heat 2, men's sprint semi-finals. First race in the best of 3 competition. Kaya Ota from Japan, the former rower up against Matthew Glaetzer from Australia, former pole vaulter. He was quite young when he made the transition from pole vault. Ota, it's been in more recent years, so fantastic transition from a sport like rowing to something as technical as men's sprinting.
Well, and Matt Richardson was a gymnast, so we've got quite a few explosive athletes that have not started on bikes, but we're grateful that they are on bikes now.
Nice and slow for now. Ota giving plenty of distance here. And you can just see the skills required. Matthew Glaetzer just looking over his shoulder the entire time around the banking and still being able to steer himself forward. Now starting to come towards the back wheel a little bit closer. Kaya Ota from Japan closes right up onto the back wheel of Matthew Glaetzer with 1 lap to go. Out of the saddle, the big South Australian pounces down the back straight now in that tuck position. And here comes Kaya Ota from Japan. Up to the back wheel, up to the shoulder, and he's passed. So there's a win for Kaya Ota over Matthew Glaetzer. That looked quite comfortable from the short-statured Japanese rider, but he is full of power to come past Glaetzer.
That was a fast final 200 as well, 9.888. To get that, Glaetzer executed very well. There will be some tough learnings from him going away from that because he did a very good job tactically to try and outsmart Ota, but Ota just too fast.
Really timed it perfectly. Now with this particular track, they have the transitions into the banks are very gentle and the track itself is quite round. So it is fairly difficult to actually come around the outside in a sprint on this track at full speed. So he's done a great job of just timing it perfectly to make sure he's up onto the hip going into that final bend and using momentum to get up around the outside of Glaetzer. So Matthew Richardson 1 up in his race against Azazul Arwang, and Kaya Ota is 1 up against Matthew Glaetzer. On to the women's second round for the keirin, Heat 1. And we see Marta Bayona from Colombia, Mathilde Gros from France, and the world sprint champion Emma Finucane. Also from Great Britain is Katie Marchant. And then we see Leah Friedrich from Germany and Miriam Fecci from Italy. So this is Finucane down the bottom of the track. Leah Friedrich from Germany, she'll be certainly looking to do something here, you would imagine. First 3 go through into the final, but the German team sprint team had a disaster in qualifying. They were disqualified after the start. There was a bit of an issue for pulling Grabosch out of the blocks, and then she fell over, and the ruling is that the mishap happened before she fell. If she had just crashed, they may have given them a restart. That was not the case. So they were quite devastated with being unable to ride the team sprint. So Leah Friedrich, with a little bit of work to do, hoping to come away with something out of this Track Nations Cup.
Well, she is the 2023 and 2024 European keirin champion. So she's very handy keirin rider, 3rd at the World Championships last year. We've seen a bit of renewal in the women's sprint ranks since the last Olympic Games. So if you cast your mind back to Tokyo, there's a few names that are in that top 12 that are still riding, but actually we've seen a whole refresh of talent coming up from the junior ranks, and likewise Leah Friedrich is certainly one of those.
So Finucane it is, first position behind the motorcycle. 6 laps of the track, bike comes off after 3. There's Marta Bayona. She sits in 5th position, just behind her Katie Marchant in the green colours, team inspired. So Finucane, then it's Fecci from Italy, Friedrich from Germany, then it's Gros from France, Colombia with Bayona, and Marchant from Great Britain. And you can see just Gap giving some little bit of room now. We just see Marchant, the first one really to try and improve her position as the bike comes off this time with 3 laps to go. Leah Friedrich, the first to really move to go up around the outside now. And Finucane trying to counteract that by increasing the pace, but Leah out of the saddle. She wants that first position.
And position is so important. The chances of a rider getting through to the next round, if they're further back than 3rd wheel at the start, is far lower than if they are in that top 3. So with 2 laps to go, 1 lap to go, it's very important to see where you are on the track.
Friedrich leads down the back straight. Marchand trying to come 3 wide, but Finucane has things covered. First 3 to go through to the final, and Friedrich fighting on the inside. Finucane will certainly go through. It'll be really close, though, between Bayona and Friedrich on the inside. Katie Marchand will also go through. So Finucane and Marchand for sure. And they are saying that Lea Friedrich from Germany will also qualify. So Bayona not quite getting over the top of the rider at the bottom of the velodrome. She went a long way out, Lea Friedrich.
Well, she's full of confidence, I think, after a big win at the European Championships, but she's also full of frustration after what happened in that team sprint on the first day of racing. I'm a little bit surprised by Mathilde Gros. I thought that she might have a little bit more in the final to come up, but it looks as though she's had an exceptionally strong European campaign as well, and she seems to be struggling just a little bit with that very top-end speed. Here, she did get 3rd in the women's sprint last night. She was pretty happy with that, but she won't be going through to the final.
Finucane, Marchand and Friedrich are the 3 that will progress into the medal round. And that is a big issue for Mathilde Gros, because in the qualifications for her home Olympics in Paris, the team sprint is very important, and they are right on the cusp of not actually qualifying, which gives them automatic positions in the sprint and in the keirin. So she may need to, if they don't qualify for the team sprint, France, she may need to qualify through these individual races.
And it is very stressful. It's a stressful time for the athletes, knowing that it's not just about getting the results they train so hard for, but also that bigger picture of qualification.
Heat number 2 now, women's keirin 2nd round. As the previous, first 3 riders going in to the race for gold. And the top of the track, we have Nikki de Grendele. As we go down, we have Alessia McCaig from Australia, Nikki de Grendele from Belgium. Also from Belgium is Julie Nicolaus from Canada, Lauriane Genet, Sophie Capewell from Great Britain, and representing Japan, Mina Sato, who was 2nd in the sprint competition. But she's been riding sensational. There she is.
Well, she has. She doesn't have a lot of pedigree in the keirin, but based on what she showed us yesterday in the sprint, she is on the rise. Lauriane Genet, the Canadian, she's 3rd at the Olympic Games. She has got the most experience out of our 6 riders that are on the track now. It's good to see Australia with Alessia McCaig out there. Scott, she is really on the improve. Both her speed and her tactics are really seeing a very steep increase.
The lady from Bendigo in Victoria, Alessia McCaig, sits in 4th position. Nicolais from Belgium in position number 1. She has Sophie Capewell sitting behind her. Then it's Sato, McCaig, Genet, and at the back is de Grendele.
The bike leaves the track at 3 laps to go. We've had some regulation changes in the last years. The rider's not allowed to change position until the bike has left the track. They draw position randomly before they go out on track. 1st, 2nd and 3rd are known to be the best positions to find overall success. So we can normally expect some early moves from the back to get themselves out of trouble early.
Alessia McCaig was the first to go, but that's been countered by Sophie Capewell from Great Britain. So McCaig now hung up on the outside. She needs to fully commit to get past or maybe jet back in on the wheel, but she's now side by side going down the back straight. And a big move from Lauriane Genet from France, gone straight around the outside while everyone was hesitating. Genet from Canada has blasted past, coming to 1 lap to go. So top 3 will go through, and you can almost pencil down Lauriane Genet because she has absolutely blasted them. She will come around to get the win. Sophie Capewell should hold on for 2nd, and coming over the top there is Mina Sato. They are the 3 that will progress.
Well, Genet, what an incredible turn of speed there. Capewell could have been caught out if Genet hadn't have opened such a huge gap that just left the other 5 riders essentially just trying to chase her down and hold on. Genet certainly, she's got pedigree as a keirin rider, but she's come here on a bit of a mission based on that ride.
That was good.
Yeah, sometimes you see them, you know, win by the least that they can, a small margin just to get through. But Genet certainly opening up the engines and doing her best. Sophie Capewell doesn't have a lot of international results in the keirin, so it's really good to see her riding so aggressively from the front as well. And look, it didn't work for the Australian McCaig Scott, but she put herself in the best position. But when Genet was accelerating, she just found herself with nowhere to go.
There's our 3 qualifiers. So we'll see Lauriane Genet, Sophie Capewell and Mina Sato up against Emma Finucane, Katie Marchant and Leah Friedrich from Germany in the final. So Alessia, yeah, had the right idea, just ran out of strength in the end. But if she keeps racing like that, as if she's trying to win, eventually as she matures and gets the strength, she'll have more opportunity. But for now, Canada looking really strong.
Well, Great Britain will have 3 riders in the final. It's hard not to collude at least a little bit when the riders know each other so well. But there are 6 finalists. It'll be interesting to see what Sato can do. She's one that you can't look back at result sheets and say, oh, you know, she hasn't necessarily performed, because she really hasn't. She's just improving so rapidly.
She's the Asian Continental keirin champion. See how she goes here at the UCI Track Nations Cup in the final later tonight. Race number 2 now, the men's sprint semi-finals, and another Asian Continental champion in Azazul Awang up against Matthew Richardson. It was a really comfortable victory for Richardson in the first race. So Awang will have to do something really special now to try and force a decider. Western Australian, based in Adelaide, South Australia. This track is the training facility for the ARA Australian national team.
He didn't have the cleanest ride in the keirin. I think he came away a bit disappointed with that. He's got something to prove today, just to himself, not to us, not to his fans, because we know what he's capable of, but it really fuels the fire. Awang, on the other hand, had a sensational sprint. We saw him lifted atop the shoulders of his compatriots in that presentation.
Best medal presentation we've had so far, with 2nd and 3rd from Japan lifting up the winner onto their shoulders. So fantastic vision last night. I'm sure that'll get into the closer of the highlight show.
Well, if anyone's listening, they should pop that one in. It was entertaining and very respectful. You could see that the riders out on track, they really look like fierce enemies, but there is a lot of respect in the sprint community between the riders.
Azazul Awang really trying to force Richardson to accelerate early, and then almost a touch of shoulders right at the very top of the track. So Richardson happy to take that first position. Awang trying to dive down or pretend that he's going to dive down to force Richardson to waste energy early. But Richardson will lead into this final lap. Awang right on the back wheel. It's going to be difficult for Awang to try and get past from there, as the acceleration out of the saddle there for Matthew Richardson, powering into the final bend. And Awang already has decided he might save it for the bronze medal, because Matthew Richardson will be going through to race for gold.
Well, that was a really clean win. Based on the first competition, I wasn't sure that it would be the same way the whole way through for Richo, that he would get his way, but that's also the smart of it. Awang knew that he didn't have the better of Richardson. He's still got a bronze medal to try and win, and so he backs off and does the best for him. Richo can go through comfortably and feel confident in that. The question is who he'll be racing in the final. But they rode a very tactical race. It wasn't just pure speed and acceleration. It was very much watching each other. The cat and mouse that a lot of fans that are not necessarily cycling fans, they say, what race did you do on the track? Is that the cat and mouse one? It really is quite famous moves, and this event is known for that.
Heat number 2, and Kaya Ota from Japan is one up in this best of 3 competition against Matthew Glaetzer. So Glaetzer in the position Awang was in the previous race. He needs to get the win here to force the deciding race. Jason Niblett, the coach for Japan, giving some advice as Matthew Glaetzer comes up right in front of some excited spectators. Up close and personal here, track cycling. Such a good way to watch cycling. Always spectacular. And you can just see the close proximity of both of these riders and their staff, shoulder to shoulder. Kaya Ota, position number 1. Matthew Glaetzer. Wonder what he's thinking. Has to get this win to go into the final against Matthew Richardson.
Well, I think even internally within the Australian team, they're still also fighting for position. So the riders are wanting to get results themselves. They're wanting to prove that they belong in the team and have a good path to the Olympic Games and the World Championships. The same can absolutely be said for the Japanese team, because they've got a lot of depth in that team, which we saw in the keirin last night.
Japanese sprint program and also their team pursuit program really has come on song in the last couple of years. They're doing really good things over there with Benoit Vertu and Jason Niblett.
And the Japanese women's program has just gone through the roof. It's been sensational to watch.
Kaya Ota looking over the shoulder. He knows of the reputation of Matthew Glaetzer, but he has the advantage of being one up in this best of 3 comp, and he will lead into the final lap. Nice handy lead over Matthew Glaetzer, but he is in the slipstream down the back straight and looking to pounce. Glaetzer comes up to the back wheel of Ota, but there's not going to be enough distance left to get past. So Kaya Ota will go through to race against Matthew Richardson in the final. And Matthew Glaetzer, he has to come back out and race against Azazul Awang for the bronze.
Such a clean ride from Ota there. I can't criticise the tactics from Glaetzer. He just didn't have the speed to come over in the way that Ota did in the earlier round. Ota did he qualified significantly faster, Ota, yeah. So it's not an unusual result, but you're right, he did look a bit tired.
Yeah. And I know the men's sprint program, they won the team sprint, but I was chatting to some of the staff and they said they haven't really backed off too much for this competition. Obviously the eye is on the prize, which is in Paris later this year. So they have been training through and up to this competition. So Matthew Glaetzer just did look a little bit tired coming into that race. But the race for gold, that's going to be between Matthew Richardson and Kaya Ota, Australia versus Japan, with Malaysia versus Australia, with Awang and Glaetzer racing for the bronze. That's all still to come tonight. We have an action-packed program, the final night of competition here at the UCI Track Nations Cup, thanks to Tissot. And we'll be into the second of the 4-discipline event that is known as the Omnium. And there's Katie Archibald right in the middle. Such a powerful lady. Jen Valente from the USA is the world champion in this discipline, the Omnium. She was there or thereabouts in the scratch race, but we'll be looking to try and put in a good race here of the tempo. Georgia Baker and also Anita Stenberg, the European champion.
Well, the favourites have got some work to do. Valente was 11th in that opening race after the scratch race. And that is a hard position to make up for. Nia Evans, the other one who finished a bit lower down in 16th than might be ideal. Wollaston has shown some fantastic form. She won the other evening in the elimination, so I think that will be an event she's looking forward to. But she also won the first World Tour event on the road for the women this year, so in form and has able to lift after the Tour Down Under and bring it onto the track. Riding with confidence.
You did mention it earlier, but Ali Wollaston won the scratch race in the Omnium at the World Championships last year, so she started that off really well. Then she was 3rd in the tempo race at the World Champs. But I can say she really has stepped up even from last year, starting this season off. Still a young rider and really progressing dramatically since last year. There's Anita Stenberg from Norway, European champ.
She was 13th at the World Championships last year, so she's also really significantly stepped up in the last 6 months. It is actually one of the wonderful things about the younger riders is they improve so quickly, and it makes them a little bit hard, a little bit unpredictable, whereas some of the older, more mature riders, you can sit down, analyse the videos, know their style, know their strengths and weaknesses, but then you get some of the younger riders. It doesn't quite work the same. That's not Ali Wollaston, that's Nia Evans on screen there. the British rider riding for Team Inspired. Apparently British Racing Green. It's not as bright as I would imagine for Racing Green.
We'd have to ask the Brits.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're the best judges of that, to be
Australians
honest.
judging British Racing Green. Top of the track is Ali Wollaston, the winner of the scratch race. So she is seeded number 1 here. Right behind her, seeded number 3 after her scratch race performance, Georgia Baker. Bottom of the track, Katie Archibald. There she is, second in the scratch, second in the overall classification. Cameron Meyer, multiple world champion in the points race. Arguably the greatest points race rider in the men's side. Put him up there with Juan Linares and also perhaps Uz Freuler. You can debate that online if you wish. Gillespie from Ireland. Here's the world champ, Valente. Fidanza from Italy. Final words from her staff. There's Morgan Kineski, the coach of the Swiss team. So Frenchman, former world champion himself. Fantastic for the Swiss to have someone as experienced and recently stepped out of the pro peloton as well to be there to actually help guide them as we look at Jen Valente.
A lot of the riders in the Omnium are not the riders that rode the World Championships for their country, because it's also an opportunity for teams to try out different riders in an Olympic year and see what they're capable of achieving.
30 laps of the track and the tempo race, as we saw the scratch race, winner first to the line at the end of 30 laps. This one, you get 1 point for only the first rider across the line on every lap. Take a lap on the field and you get 20 points. So they have 4 laps to ride into the race before they do start the intermediate sprints, but every time they come around, it's 1 point for the first rider across the line. And that seems fairly simple, and it is for the first couple of laps until multiple riders start getting points or going on the attack and taking laps on the field. It can get quite complicated. There is the background of the event itself. 26 times they'll come across to pick up 1 point, but often riders are able to get a lap on the field, and that completely changes the configuration. Fidanza on the front.
She was the world champion in the scratch race in 2022, but she didn't get the Omnium spot at the World Championships. That went to Letizia Paternoster, a very talented young Italian rider. Fidanza only 24, but Paternoster 21, and they gave her the opportunity. Now they're saying if Fidanza can earn her spot back into that position, she is very speedy, has a very rapid finish. Wasn't as high in the scratch races I thought she may be. She was down in 13th, but she has had a pretty good performance this week. They started really well in the Madison last night. They had some really clean changes at the beginning, but by the end it was a bit scrappy.
And there's the bell to signify the tempo points are now available. 1 point for the leader across the line every time. And it makes it really challenging, actually, as Coles Lister is the Canadian that's going to pick up that first point. She has Stenberg right behind her. So the first point and the first leader is Maggie Coles Lister from Canada. And now Stenberg looks like she might be able to hold on here for the next 1 point that's on offer.
Well, if they pick up no points, then it's their position over the line on the final lap that will determine where they sit in this event. And so getting any points at all, we saw in the men's 24 riders, 40 laps, only 11 points. Katie Archibald picking up her first point, so points on every lap here for the first across the line only.
And Archibald swung up and has gone back down to go and get the next point that's on offer. So Katie Archibald signalling very early on her intent, and she's opened up a bit of a gap here. She hasn't noticed yet, swung up the track and hasn't realised, and now she comes back down again. So she wasn't really looking at where the rest of the peloton was. Now she realised she has another opportunity to get another point. This will be 3 for her, and she'll take a nice little handy lead very early on with 21 laps to go.
She's not looking to have a breakaway. She was just looking to get some easy points, and while the peloton was hesitating, it makes sense for her to dive back down and continue to go on. But she'll need to get a bit of recovery now because with 2 more events up, it is all about conservation as well.
Gillespie from Ireland. She looked good in the scratch race. Up near the front now.
She was 7th in the scratch race. Finds herself on the board now. Got 5 riders with points. We've now got 6. Xiaoli Lu from China has just taken 1 point.
Now in the men's omnium, there were riders that attacked really early on, and they were dominating the race out in front. This is much better to watch. There's a real even mix, a real even spread as we see Fidanza coming up around to pick up 1 point. So that's another rider that is earning her first point. So this is going to be really interesting as we get deeper into the race. There's a real mix and an even spread across the nations with Archibald leading on 3 points.
And if there's a lot of riders that all have 1 point, it still matters where they cross the line in the finish for their final and ultimate ranking. Jen Valente just got herself a point, so she is on the board now too.
And there has been a split of the peloton here, so they are in 2 halves. The second half really need to be careful because they're going to be out of this race as we see.
It's Yumi Kajihara who takes the point there. The Japanese rider already had 1 point. She's now on 2 points.
About to pick up another one as well.
That'll put her right up the top with Archibald, who goes over in second. And they're pretty determined pushing the pace because a reasonably significant gap has opened up between the front half and the second half of the peloton. Aussie Georgia Baker, who was so good in the scratch race, she's stuck in that second group.
And out of the second group, as we see Kajihara pick up another point. So she's really doing a great job here as we see Nia Evans now coming out towards her. Now, the black colours we just saw flash into the back of the picture, that's Ali Wollaston from New Zealand. She has jumped out of the second group to try and get across to the front because there is a real danger here of all of these riders are out in front, going around taking a lap on the rest of the field. They'll all be given 20 points for gaining a lap. So this is going to be crucial in the overall standings. And Ali Wollaston saw the danger and is trying to rectify that. She has now made her way across.
And Georgia Baker is the big name from the scratch race that has missed out on that front group. So this will cost her quite dearly because we've got 10 riders that have now jumped, that are now in that leading group.
So really strong and brave move by Ali Wollaston. Now 2 riders have got onto the back of the peloton. Almost about the same size, these 2 groups. But Kajihara and Evans, they're at the back of the group there. So they are the 2 riders that have gained a lap. So they'll go up to first and second in the overall standings once they adjust the points. And their lap will be given to them. The rest of that group is about to come on board now as well. Here they come.
And they have an opportunity when they do take the lap to have a bit of a rest, put themselves in a good position. So they've just made the catch. Now, Ali Wollaston was given the point for that lap because they weren't quite on yet and she rolled over the front, over the line in the front. That was smart from her to sneak an extra point.
Absolutely. Now they have adjusted it, so all of those riders, the 10 riders that were off the front, have now been given 1 lap up, and we're going back to the front of the race as the peloton has all come back together again. 6 laps to go. They haven't made the lap gain adjustment to the points just yet, so we'll still wait for the update in the overall standings.
Well, Evans was down in 16th in the scratch race, so she needs this. Georgia Baker, she will come around. It looks like she'll take that 1 point, but she wasn't part of the group that took the lap, so that will hurt her quite significantly from a points perspective. Even it out a bit. At this point, Ali Wollaston and Katie Archibald are the only 2 who have been consistent in both races so far. Still 4 laps to go, though.
Real sprint battle it was there, throwing the bikes to get across the line. Larata was the one that picked up the point that time. And some real close calls happening here as well. Martins from Portugal has popped off the front, so she gets that 1 point. And Wollaston desperate now to try and pick up some points and try and maximise her position here in the tempo race. So Ali Wollaston will come over to pick up a point with 2 laps to go. Can she go on and pick up the next 2 sprints? She's looking pretty strong. She might be able to do that, so that'll help out in terms of the overall classification. Reminder, they have not updated the lap gain and the 20 points that each rider gets for doing so.
But Wollaston, a great job. She's now picked up 2 points, and if she keeps going, she'll be able to pick up a 3rd, and that will jettison her up to 2nd position overall. And after the win in the scratch race, that will put her on quite a handy lead.
So Wollaston comes across to pick up the final points, and in these races that you have to go as hard as you can on that last lap to make sure you're as far forward in the peloton as possible, because if you haven't got any points, or if you're on the same points as the others, then it's where you finish across the line in that final sprint as to where you finish in the overall standings for that particular discipline of the Omnium.
And we saw in the men's Omnium last night that 1st and 2nd were on the same points, Bibic and Viviani, and it came down to the position where they were in the race. Kajahara looks to be our winner on 5 points from the laps and then 20 points from gaining a lap. She did a really solid job.
Ali Wollaston will come out as the 2nd place getter, considering she was almost going to go a lap behind and lose 20 points to all those riders. She was desperately jumping out of that 2nd group, getting across and then going off the front. So super strong ride for Ali Wollaston to finish 2nd ahead of Katie Archibald. And then Olga Zabelinskaya in 4th place. Nia Evans in 5th. So done a good job there, Nia, compared to how she was in that first scratch race. But Yumi Kajihara from Japan, she wins the tempo race, the 2nd discipline within the women's Omnium.
Well, no, she was 20th in that opening scratch race. So we've had some really quite variable results. Only Wollaston and Archibald have been by far the most consistent. That will be reflected in the updated standings going into the next race. So Wollaston in the lead at the moment, Archibald next. Georgia Baker maintains 3rd, but there's now quite a big gap. 78 for Ali Wollaston at the top. Georgia Baker in 3rd. She's on 58. Because Wollaston and Archibald are really the 2 consistent ones. A bit varied. Now, interestingly, Jennifer Valente, a great effort there. She has made her way up, and that is because of these tempo race standings. She's now in 5th overall after a 7th in that tempo race.
The Adelaide Superdrome, and the overall standings now after 2 disciplines within the Omnium race. Still the elimination and the points race to come. And Ali Wollaston, she salvaged herself exceptionally well that time. Ali Wollaston comes away, 78 points overall lead, only 4 points ahead of Katie Archibald. So that's going to be a fantastic battle over the next couple of events, with Georgia Baker sitting just in behind. Sprint final still to come for the men. Keirin final as well. Men's Madison, that's the race that's coming onto the track next. Saw a fantastic women's Madison last night, won by Great Britain. Katie Archibald already with a gold medal from last night. Can she add to that tonight in the Omnium? In the men's Madison, Germany, Italy, Belgium, Japan, Great Britain, Poland, New Zealand, Austria, Czechia, Spain. Down to Switzerland, Portugal, Indonesia, Australia, Canada, and Team Bridgestone Cycling, which is a Japanese trade team. So 2 teams from Japan, so they've done really well also to get both of their teams through the qualifying this afternoon. They did have to have Madison heats to get into this final. 50 kilometres, 200 laps, sprint every 10 laps for 5, 3, 2 and 1 points. Take a lap on the field, you'll get 20. If you get dropped and lose a lap, you'll be minus 20. And on the final sprint, it is double points. And we've seen so often in the points race and in the Madison that everything has changed in the medal positions on that final sprint. 10, 6, 4 and 2 points on offer. The average speed of the men's Madison at the World Championships last year for 50 kilometres, 58.8 kilometres per hour. This is fast, this is hectic, and it's one of my favourite events to watch. Can get a little bit messy out there with so many riders on the track and so many things happening.
Sure can. 51 minutes it took to ride the 50 kilometres. Not bad, I would say.
Reasonable.
Yeah, reasonable. We've got some of the riders that were in that race that are here tonight. We've got some new combinations. The Brits, they were second at the World Championships. That was Ollie Wood and Mark Stewart. Stewart has been replaced by Josh Tarling, who has been just on the up and up. He's claimed some big victories. Alea Viviani there, warming up with the ice vest on. He's got the aero gloves. It's quite a fashion statement, isn't it, when you've got the aero gloves and whatnot?
Well, I'm glad he's wearing gloves. A lot of the riders these days, and I sound like an old man when I say this, not wearing gloves. It, of course, is their choice, do whatever they want. But in the unfortunate situation where they may crash, if they put their hand down onto the track or on the road, if it's road racing, and take skin off their palm, very difficult to continue racing, whether it's that day or in the future. So the glove may actually protect them just enough so they can continue competing. Viviani with his aero gloves on. There's Roger Kluge, European champion. Such an experienced Madison rider. Knows exactly what needs to be done. The mind knows, it's whether the legs will be listening.
Kluge and Reinhardt, the combination from Germany, also the combination, they're well worn. They've ridden a lot together.
Two-time Madison world champions, that pairing from Germany. Aaron Gate coming onto the track for New Zealand, another very well-credentialed track cyclist.
Aaron Gate and Campbell Stewart, they were third at the World Championships last year.
Ollie Bledden, originally from Western Australia, now based out of Adelaide, riding alongside Blake Agneletto, a young Australian pairing. They did ride together at the Jakarta World Cup last year, or Nations Cup, I should say. So they have had experience at this level. This is only the second time that they've raced in a peloton this size. Agneletto is the Australian Madison champion. That was with Kel O'Brien.
Viviani and Scartazzini riding again together. They haven't had a lot of success in recent years with this pairing, but individually they have had some incredible results. Viviani, equal points for the win in the Omnium last night. Got second ultimately in a countback. Dylan Bibic taking the win. Now he's had a good week. He also won the elimination. He is out there tonight. Why not? Give it another go. He's riding with Michael Foley. The Canadians, well, I expect them to put in a fair bit of effort and certainly be quite antagonistic in the race. And we know Bibic is on form.
Portugal, represented by Luri Lieto and Diago Narciso. There's Aaron Gate from New Zealand. Well experienced. And the two Japanese squads, both Japan as the national team and the Bridgestone trade team. Yuri Lieto, the Omnium world champion from 2023. Riding for Portugal with Narciso. A very popular win that was for a Portuguese rider to win a track world championship. So a sensational performance in Glasgow last year. Canadian boys all set to go. If you haven't seen a Madison before, strap into your seats. This is spectacular. One rider from each team will line up here at the start-finish line. Their teammate will go to the back straight as we see the first of the riders lining up down the back straight now. And then after we get underway, they'll come down and make their changeovers via a hand sling. relay race of sorts. Around about 3 laps or so, each rider will be in the race while the other one goes out and tries to rest as much as they possibly can. Really difficult. At first, it's easy. It seems like there's a long pause in between coming in and out of the race. Towards the end, it feels like you haven't had any rest at all before you have to dive back down and get slung back into the action.
We tend to see some very neat changes early on in the proceedings. Now, you can get a little bit sloppy toward the end, and that's often when there's a little bit of danger, and they need to really be very careful, very cautious. 200 laps the riders will be racing, 50 kilometres. They have 20 sprints along the way, so every 10 laps.
That's Campbell Stewart riding with Aaron Gate for New Zealand.
16 teams out on track. At the World Championships, 10 of those teams got points. At the Olympics, 11 got points. So we tend to have a fair bit of turnover, quite a few teams that are in the mix. It's not uncommon to see some teams gain points early on in the sprints, but then lose a lap. You do lose 20 points if you fall behind. You gain 20 points if you take a lap. And if you neither fall behind nor gain a lap, then it's just whatever points you earn.
The old Madison rules were that still the points in between intermediate sprints, they were 20 laps apart, the old school rules. And if you took a lap on the field, you were 1 lap ahead of everyone else and leading the bike race. They've decided to, in their opinion, neaten things up a little bit, turn it more into a straight-out points race. Kenny de Kedler on the right-hand side, talking to Andreas, our principal or president of the commissaire panel. Kenny de Kedler, very accomplished Madison rider himself, star of the 6-day racing scene throughout the European winter in years gone by. It's Andreas Gensheimer. And it's all of our commissaires and referees doing a fantastic job this week. Trevor Reid from Great Britain. If you're at the velodrome, if you're a little bit unsure of who's actually in the front of the bike race, Trevor's normally the man that's pointing out whoever is leading, and that gives all of the officials and everyone an indication of actually who is at the front of the race. So he has to have a very keen eye throughout these events.
Oh, I wouldn't want to be a cameraman for the first time trying to follow a Madison.
Just look for Trevor, see where he's pointing, then you'll find out who's leading the race. If he doesn't know, we're in big trouble.
Yes. It can get a bit hectic, especially with so many teams out on track and riders dropping in. There literally are riders all over the place.
Young Josh Tarling, absolute superstar in the making. He's already there, but he's still so young, expecting a big future from him. Madison racing, perhaps one of the least experiences that he has so far. So let's see how the youngster from Great Britain, who is an absolute sensation, see how he goes. You know, the hustle and bustle of an international Madison like this here in Adelaide at the UCI Track Nations Cup.
Well, he's a tall lad. He's a slightly different frame to Wood. Some Madison pairings, they're like brothers. They're like little twins. I'm thinking of Danny Stam and Robert Slippens, a Dutch pair that were very successful in their day, and they look like they were brothers, similar frames, but we don't see that quite as much these days.
Race is underway, 200 laps, sprint every 10 for points, 5, 3, 2 and 1. And the first change is now being made. Team Bridgestone on the front with Australia sitting in second position. Then it's Switzerland, Belgium, Austria, Poland, Italy and Portugal. Everyone successfully through the first change. And the first couple of changes, exchanges between the teammates, really hectic because they all start at the same position. Once they spread out a little bit further around the track, then it's a little bit less hectic as we see New Zealand with Aaron Gate coming up around. It's always a fight to be at or near the front. Nobody really wants to be on it at the early stages because it costs energy. But they don't want to go too far back because very soon they'll be looking at getting into position for the first of the sprints.
Well, and with an average speed of nearly 60 kilometres an hour, around 58 k an hour is what we're looking at. So 50 kilometres in around 51 minutes. When you're sitting too far back, it takes a lot of energy to move up. In the first couple of sprints, it's quite usual to see teams testing their legs, seeing how they're feeling, seeing how they can go in the sprints against the other teams, because some teams, they won't really be able to get a lot of points in sprints. It'll be more taking laps that will be their tactic.
Japan now coming up to the front in front of Belgium. 194 laps to go. New Zealand, Australia, Italy, well placed. The European champions from Germany sitting just behind the blue colours of Italy. That is the German team in the colours of the European champions, Reinhardt and Kluger. You can see if you look down towards the back of the bunch how spread out they are, and when a lot of the teams in front start making their changes, that's when the gaps start to open up and you're wasting energy having to close those gaps. That's Theo Reinhardt now we're looking at as they come around with 192 laps to go. And there's a mad race now to get in the right position for this first of the intermediate sprint. Some really tight changes there as everyone's being squeezed as they come around to hear the bell for the first time. Belgium will lead into the front straight with 1 lap to go. Japan well placed in second, and a perfectly timed change from Japan. Kluger comes back into the race for Germany, but look at this, Japan straight up to the back wheel of Belgium, and there's a real fight for these first points. 5 points will go the way of Japan. Great start for them in front of Belgium.
Well, Van der Branden from Belgium was looking pretty strong until Naoki Kojima from the Japanese team very comfortably popped over the top to take those points. Once again, I think the Japanese team is just gaining confidence from all of the disciplines that they're riding. They've had quite a lot of success here at the Nations Cup. The German team not wearing their normal German colours because they are European champions, so we can see them with the blue continental champion bands. Now the gun has been fired to neutralise the race. The yellow flag is out, but we're not sure why.
I think maybe the power has actually gone out to the lap board.
Oh, that's...
Yep.
And
so
the scoreboard. We can see from where we are that the scoreboard has gone out too, so a bit of an unusual power failure in here in the velodrome. Gee, that's tough for the riders because...
Well, the lights are still on, but it is only the power has been tripped for, as you mentioned, the scoreboard and the lap counter. We can still see the lights in the complex are on, so it's not a complete blackout.
Some of the computers appear to still be working, but there's some that we can see are furiously plugging them back in to try and get them back online. So no doubt there'll be a few mutterings under breath, so it would happen as they get this back up and running. And confusion for the riders. They will be not a lot of clarity over what happens next and how long this may take.
Well, if the race stopped now, Japan get their first Track Nations Cup victory in a Madison.
I think it might also be the shortest Madison in Track Nations Cup history.
Well, we have a look back at the sprint. Belgium really did a good job, but the change just before 1 lap to go by Japan really set them up to come over the top and get the win.
We've just seen the commissaire give the riders a cross hands, a no deal. They're bringing the red flag out. They're saying off the track. Not just neutral, but off the track, and they're clearing it.
Well, there you go. We've gone from a yellow flag to a red flag, and the problem may be bigger than we thought.
We'll feed through any information we get. There is still some power in the velodrome. The lights are still on. Our devices are still working. We can tell you that the internet box is still buzzing away here with all the green lights.
I wonder if they've got the old school lap counter somewhere within the building. Bring that out. We can at least count the laps down.
Oh, give me a white piece of paper, Scott, and we can make it happen. As long as you can count backwards from 200, I think you'll be right. Or less than that now. We've already had one sprint, which Japan won.
The other challenge, though, of course, for the riders would be to work out where they are, because they do look up to the scoreboard after all of the sprints to see exactly where they sit.
That would be a much bigger challenge, I would have to say. There's a few shrugging emojis going on. The UCI chatting to the commissaires there.
I just saw the shaking head of Kimberly Conti, the blonde commissaire on the right-hand side there. So this is unfortunate to see. Luckily, it was only after that first sprint, so we're only 10 laps into the race. So in terms of the physical nature of this event, that's not going to be that badly interrupted. They had only just had that first 10 laps, then this has happened. If we were somewhere halfway through, that could completely change when we restart how the race goes. No one's fatigued as yet, so they'll be starting at least on an even playing field. If we start.
If we start, yes. This has certainly been an unexpected shift in the afternoon, I would say. Usually when we're having racing pauses, it's because of track repairs or something like that. This is probably one of those disaster scenarios that not too many people planned for.
Well, I'll talk about some scenarios. I guess one of the races, although this was to be just over 50 minutes, so the next races coming up, like the sprint finals, which are pretty straightforward, 3 laps, you don't need to look at the scoreboard for that. You could conduct those races without the power to the lap board, but they'd have to then bring forward their preparation by a good 45 minutes now. That would be a challenge.
Well, we just saw one of the commissaires. He's actually written it down on a whiteboard, so it looks like they're scenario planning to manually count the riders down. The issue, as you've said, remains with the scoreboard and how difficult that may then be. The riders, they're looking around, they're trying to get some information. There they are with the whiteboard. What can they do with that?
That facial expression is not filling me with confidence.
Yes, yes. I think you could provide some funny alternate commentary to these pictures. Some faces of, I don't really know what's going on. The shoulder shrug emoji, a few wobbling heads.
Well, we are also hearing that from the women's tempo race in the Omnium that Ali Wollaston may have been relegated from one of the point sprints that she got. So we can see her here in the black colours. Now she dived down underneath and then went onto the light blue band. So she improved her position without crashing, you might add, on the light blue band at the bottom of the track. So that point that she picked up after this was then taken away from her.
I don't like that. You know why I don't like that is because Maggie Coles-Lister came down quite sharply and Wollaston changed her line from going up and over to diving down and under for a safety, in my view. And I don't think she ever intended to go underneath. And so I think that that's a little bit of a harsh ruling given the circumstances.
She took the safest line in the end.
She did.
Which looked dangerous, but it was probably the safest line.
In that condition. And the rules, to a degree, are open to interpretation because you can't just have... It would really change the racing if the rules were so strict that they had to go back and forth over shots like they do in tennis. You know, the tiniest of margin out and it gets a call. In cycling, it's a little bit more fluid.
Good to see Ali holding an upright, no one else going down as well. So really won't change too much in the overall standings.
Speaking of down, some of our Madison riders, it's really hot out there. And so 39 degrees it has been today here in Adelaide. They're getting some ice packs, the Swiss team. They're also just sitting down on the cold concrete. Josh Tarling with a nice cold face washer around his neck to cool himself off in the meantime.
And I can tell you that we do have power back. So I can see the lap board has come back on. And it's just popped off again, but the scoreboard is on. The scoreboard is on.
There we are.
So we have power back to the scoreboard and to our lap scorer as well. So I don't think we'll be too far away from getting back into the action, which is fantastic. 191 laps to go on the scoreboard there. We'll see what they end up coming away with.
Well, they were handwriting on the board 189. That's what the lap board is saying now too. They can't restart it on a sprint lap. 191. That's
why not? That'd be fun.
Why not? Yeah, that's not a really great scenario for any of the riders. So it looks like they're going to shorten it by one sprint. a gift or an inconvenience. It really depends what happens in the final as to whether the teams are glad there were only 19 sprints or really frustrated that there's not a 20th.
Hopefully there won't be too much more of a delay. We did see Ollie Wood there with his helmet off, and now that we've got the power back, let's get ourselves back into the action as quickly as we possibly can. As I said before, there's real no issue in terms of fatigue with only that first 10 laps completed. Not an issue for any of the riders. No one's gone too deep just yet.
That was not on my bingo card.
Now the Japanese are leading with that first sprint win, and we've got a good look here at the Japanese compound and the coaching staff. We've mentioned Jason Niblett as a former sprint cyclist himself, and Benoit Vertu, who runs that program, also a former sprinter. So we look at the track endurance side. The team pursuit men finished 5th here this week, and the Madison lads are doing very well also. So while they've got leadership from former sprinters, they're doing really well also in those sprint coaches in training up the Japanese endurance riders. So they're getting right across the board, not just sprint, but in the endurance as well.
Fair bit of sprinting going on in these Madisons, so there's certainly some crossover.
This is a look back at Ali Wollaston. You can see as the Swiss rider flicked down the track, Wollaston had really nowhere else to go. So she chose the safest option, but the commissaire panel did not look too favourable upon it.
I don't love that decision, but I love our commissaires. They're wonderful. They've done a fantastic job and they work very hard.
What there is no doubt is Wollaston's form. Absolutely flying.
And Wollaston's skills. Because to be able to change line at that speed coming into a sprint is pretty remarkable.
Now, what that has done for the women's omnium overall classification is it just took 2 points off Ali Wollaston. So she still actually leads, equally with Katie Archibald on 76 points. So it still puts her in a good position in the overall standings. Despite that, with Lara Gillespie sitting in 3rd place, we've still got those 2 races in the elimination and the points race to come, as Michele Scartazzini is getting himself ready again to restart the men's Madison.
Yeah, that'll come up soon. We'll read you those top 10 when we get to the women's omnium, because that has changed things around a little bit. The world champion Jennifer Valente is now up to 4th, even though she had a slow start. But they have a little bit more time, a little bit more gap between events now, a bit more recovery. That'll be really great for some, but some others will be wanting to get on with it.
Well, the practice match is over. Now we're into the real battle. Men's Madison, first 10 laps down, and we can recommence very shortly.
Well, we've just had some icy cold water delivered to us up here in commentary. It is so hot in here.
And the bottle has gone straight to the back of my neck to try and cool things down. Ollie Bledden from Australia, the youngster, riding with Blake Agnoletto. And we roll off the fence once more for the men's Madison. 50 kilometres at the start of the competition. And we've gone 11 laps into it. We're starting with 189 laps after having that first sprint. Japan lead on 5 points, Belgium on 3, Germany on 2, and it's the New Zealanders on 1 point. And the gun shall fire as they come through this time. And we are underway again. Australia, Poland, Austria, Belgium and Portugal clustered at the front of the peloton as the first changes are once again about to be made.
Well, it's not only the heat inside the velodrome that affects the speed and the feeling for the riders, but it's also whether the air is dry or whether it's moist. And here we have very dry air, which makes it quite hard to breathe, actually. By the end of these longer events, it's not unusual to hear the riders with a little bit of a husky voice. And you can get some coughs, shooter's cough we used to call it, when we trained in Adelaide in these dry conditions.
Conditions are, well, it is hot, but the actual thickness of the air is pretty good. So fairly fast conditions in the track tonight. Nice change from Austria. Schmidbauer and Ritzinger. Good change of grain there for the Australian pairing as well of Agneletto and Bleden. That's Max Schmidbauer. Change for Team Bridgelane, Australian National Road Series team. Bridgestone. Plug to the Aussie team, Bridgelane, winning the National Road Series, I don't know how many times in the last decade or more. 184 laps to go, so it won't be long now. Off the change now, the riders will certainly start to look at the next sprint that's coming up as Roger Kluger looks for Theo Reinhardt. Reinhardt comes in and it's 183 to go. Big move from Italy around the outside. Scartazzini comes over the top, and also Tarling from Great Britain. So they'll come around to get 182 to go, and it's not far for the first of the second sprint now. And Tarling is going to do everything he can to put Ollie Wood, his teammate, in a great position for this next sprint.
Well, Tarling, a great time trialist. He can go long too. If he can just keep the pace up and throw Wood in just as the bell comes, that is the ultimate position for the British team.
Viviani in second position. It's Ollie Wood that leads into this sprint. Down the back straight now, Viviani squeezes up around the outside. Nice and composed for the former Olympic Omnium champion. As Viviani picks up the 5, Great Britain 3, Germany, the European champions, in third place with 2, and Belgium up there in fourth place, 1 point for them. So Italy and Japan now both tied on 5 points as sprint winners each.
And you'd forget there was even an interruption. They're back up to speed pretty quickly. Viviani, he looks really comfortable. Each day on the track, he's looking more and more comfortable. The last years, he's taken some time away to do more road racing, but he's on a bit of a mission toward Paris. The British team, they're looking pretty comfortable to me at the moment. Tarling and Wood neither have been under too much pressure. They are someone to really watch for the break toward the end or the second half to the end of the Madison. They're just picking up some minor points at the moment.
Scartazzini swings up for Italy. And again, no one really that willing to go to the front. So Canada decides to slide around the outside. Michael Foley and Dylan Bibic. I've seen a lot of Bibic this week, and Dylan's about to come into the race now as Viviani's looking for Scartazzini. You can see the blue colours just gone out of shot. They're changing now. Nice hand change. Very experienced pairing of Viviani and Scartazzini.
They do need to keep the speed up, because if they slow down too much, that is the opportunity for breaks to start going, laps to get taken, and the 20 points that you get for them a lap, it's quite beneficial in the overall. There'll be 19 sprints in this Madison, one short of the 20 from the 200 laps. Only 2 laps short, but one of those being a sprint lap.
174 to go, and a lot of changes at the front of the peloton. High pace, but not absolutely flat out as we see Great Britain make the change. Tarling comes in, and it's pretty messy in there. You can just see how difficult it is if you're a long way back, how high you have to go and the ducking and weaving that it requires to go around riders. Ollie Bleden from Australia now goes to the front. They'll come around for 172 laps to go.
It's Italy and Great Britain again positioning themselves comfortably toward the front. Scartazzini and Josh Tarling. This is becoming habit, but Bleden was very good to get in on Tarling's wheel there. But where's Wood to be thrown in?
171 laps to go. The next intermediate sprint, Tarling throws Wood in, so great exchange from them this time. The Australians, they lose out in their change, but they're in third position. Agneletto comes in. Belgium up around the outside, maybe, maybe not. Ollie Wood has a little bit more in the legs, and he squeezes the accelerator right through to pick up the 5 points there.
Great job by the British team. Gianluca Polifleet for the Belgian team, almost sneaking those points away. But Great Britain in the lead now. Belgium have now moved up to second. Italy sitting in third. The Japanese have only featured in one sprint, but they're still sitting on fourth on the board.
So 3 sprints down, and Great Britain doing really well here. Belgium on 7 points, Britain on 8. Italy consistent, Japan just that first sprint win. They haven't gone back into the points since then.
Some heads starting to drop. That always worries me from a fatigue point of view and a skills and Madison change point of view. When the heads are starting to drop, you've got to keep looking forward. If your neck's tight, I imagine your legs are too.
Still fairly bunched up, 2 and 3 abreast throughout the peloton, so not absolutely full gas at the front, stringing them all out. But once again, you just see the washing machine, the mess that it is.
There've been quite a few hands flailing around, trying to get the attention of their partners further up the track who are looking back. A few teams are just finding their legs and finding their combination amongst some really experienced pairings.
New Zealand come to the front now. And really tight behind, you see, with Portugal going back through to get to the change, right down towards the back. But the first of the Portuguese riders almost dive-bombed the rest of the peloton as he went back through.
Gate and Stewart, the New Zealand pairing, third at the World Championships and one of the more experienced pair of riders that have done a lot of Madisons together. Aaron Gate was on fantastic form in the Omnium.
163 laps to go. Now they'll start thinking about this next sprint. That's what the European champions from Germany are doing, coming up shoulder to shoulder and straight over the top. It's Bridgestone from Japan. So 162, another lap to get around to the bell. And it's really packed at the front. Everyone really fighting hard to get into the right position and looking for their partners that are going to be coming down to make the changes soon as the bell is about to ring. But it will be Bridgestone that lead into the sprint lap first. New Zealand with a change. They'll come through in second. Then it's GB. And underneath Australia, really dangerous move there from Ollie Bledden as they make the change down the back straight. But up front, New Zealand fighting against Bridgestone as they come around the final bend, and New Zealand will get the 5 points ahead of Bridgestone. Italy will get the 3 points. Great Britain 1 point for fourth. And there was a couple of really dicey situation in that particular sprint, and you can see the extra speed has now started to stretch the peloton.
Well, Aaron Gate just got the better there of Hashimoto from the Bridgestone team.
I've put the hex on it now?
Hex, yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Viviani, he took the third spot for the 2 points, but Great Britain, more points yet again. Only 1 point, and Italy have now moved up into second. It's still pretty early days. We've got 15 sprints left to go. But Great Britain are looking comfortable and they're looking consistent. Italy, especially Viviani, is just putting himself and putting the team right in the hot mix of it. Our first move in earnest, our first attack of the day. Not getting a huge amount of leeway here. Banaszek from the Polish team. He's riding with Szalaski. Banaszek is quite experienced Madison rider, but Szalaski is newer on the scene. But they haven't accrued any points yet, and this is a good way to do it. The team's less likely to chase them than they would be to chase Great Britain, for example, because they haven't got any points yet, but it doesn't mean that they get given a sneaky lap.
Voracek Szalaski now comes in, and they're maintaining a good gap here. 153 laps to go, so there's a chance they can at least hold on for the next sprint. See Voracek look over the left-hand shoulder to see where the peloton is, and he soldiers on down the back straight. It's the European champions of Germany that have maintained position on the front of the peloton. And a look back to the change with Blake Agnoletto, and pretty tight. Look at that. Oh, Agnoletto just incredibly not hitting the back wheel of Elia Viviani.
That was exceptional skill to be able to do that.
Poland come through with 151 laps to go. They do have enough distance here to make sure they pick up the 5 points maximum on offer for this sprint. And a quick move from Japan up around the outside of the European champions, Germany. So Poland with 5, Japan, then Switzerland and Germany across the line.
Well, Banaszek for Poland. That's the first points that they'll get. 5 it is. Japan pick up another 3. That'll catapult them back up into second position. Sensational riding from them. We have already 10 different teams with points on the board.
I'm going to give some extra points to Blake Agnoletto for holding it up.
That was really impressive because he had to reverse his bike back out of the seat and push back in order to hold that up. So I can understand the groan that we heard from the crowd when that happened.
I think it was Blake's front tyre as well. He was groaning. You could see what was happening up
I
close and
say,
personal.
I think that was Blake's dad. He might be he might be the one up on the bend.
Sandy and Robin, his parents, are here in the velodrome. 147 laps to go, and the pace has come back off a little bit.
Well, the Polish team has been reabsorbed, but they're still riding toward the front. Shalarski and Banaszek had a very successful point-gathering mission, but you can see very clearly Kluger and Reinhardt, the European champions, the German pairing, they want to police, if you will, and be very close to the front, not letting anything go. The New Zealand team, Gate and Stewart, third at the World Championships, very experienced Madison riders, staying out of trouble. 145 laps to go, so still a few until they do get the bell for the sprint. But it's getting a little bit messy out there, and it really is important that they get in a comfortable position.
Change from New Zealand, Australia, come up over the top. And they're about to change at the top of the track there. So Agnoletto straight to the front of the peloton. Germany have been really good with their positioning. So while they're sitting in 6th place on 5 points, still within striking distance, they've been towards the front a lot, so they haven't had to bridge many gaps. They're actually saving and conserving a fair amount of energy by being in the top 4 or 5 all the time. Now they've made the decision, the European champions, to go to the front because it's the sprint coming up next time around. Teo Reinhardt leads the way. Agnoletto from Australia in 2nd position. Then it's Campbell Stewart about to make the change to Aaron Gate for New Zealand. And Poland about to make the change right behind them. Bell lap this time, and it's Roger Kluger from Germany comes through. Big move, though, coming from New Zealand. The Australians have changed a little bit late to try and maximise their advantage of being towards the front because Germany versus New Zealand coming into the sprint. It'll be 140 laps to go, and the big, powerful man, Roger Kluger from Germany, the European champ, picks up the 5 points. So that takes them up to 10 points and the outright lead, but by only 1 point ahead of Great Britain and New Zealand.
Roger Kluger for Germany, ahead of Aaron Gate from New Zealand. The Aussies, Ollie Bledden, he was 3rd across the line for that sprint. And the Polish pair, Shalarski and Banaszek, once again finding themselves, they seem to have really pepped up. They had a slow start, but they're certainly in the race now. New Zealand has kept going, and now we're seeing Campbell Stewart off the front there. Pretty significant gap back to Reinhardt, the European champion from Germany, chasing once again. Here's Shalarski from Poland, trying to bridge across, and the Australians are the ones that are holding on to the German team there. 4 teams out the front.
Austria also just getting in touch. Poland, the next one's trying to come across. 136 laps to go. That's Blake Agnoletto sitting on the wheel of Roger Kluger. Change for them down the back straight and almost a crash as Ollie Bledden came in at just a little bit too slow for the Australians. New Zealand, they are not letting off the pressure. They keep pushing forward. Because of all the gaps behind, while it's hurting the New Zealanders in front, everyone else is hurting just the same. There's no one really sitting comfortably on a wheel right now at 134 laps to go.
Well, Italy has missed a trick because they are well out of shot and out of sight. They've got a lot of work to do to get back up. The other team who are stuck at the back as well with the Italians is the Belgian team. And the Brits, Josh Tarling and Ollie Wood, they just lost focus for a moment and have found themselves well at the back of this chasing group. It is coming back together, but they've had to use a lot of energy to bring it back.
Well, the chase group is coming back together, but not out in front because Germany and New Zealand have opened up a significant gap of the rest of the field. Austria trying to come across. That's Roger Kluger onto the back wheel of Aaron Gate. And the Kiwis have done some damage here tonight. Into the next sprint, New Zealand lead, Germany 2nd, Austria 3rd, and further back is Portugal and Team Bridgestone. And there's no contest out in front. It's New Zealand that will pick up the 5 points. So they will go to the outright lead now, just ahead of Germany. Austria have also made contact with those 2 teams out in front.
Well, that was Felix Ritzinger from Austria who took the 3rd points there. The pairing of Ritzinger and Schmidbauer, we haven't spoken of them yet. This is the first time they're finding themselves on the board, but they are in the absolute plum position to be up there with the New Zealand team, the European champions of Germany. Bridgestone, they're up there now too, Scott.
Portugal
so
as well.
the group is swelling.
Yeah, Portugal also there. So this is very interesting indeed. New Zealand did all the damage. Germany was strong enough to go. Australia were with them, but unfortunately faded back into the peloton. And they are not far from the back of the peloton. 20 points for all of the teams that can gain a lap here. And as they go down the back straight, this is a replay back to that previous sprint. And look at that damage. New Zealand have been incredible here tonight so far. Still a long way to go, 126 laps. But Germany and New Zealand find themselves at the top, 14 and 13 points, with the gap now back to Great Britain on 9.
A very solid start. Roger Kluge riding with Theo Reinhardt, Aaron Gate and Campbell Stewart. And we're back onto live pictures now, and this is the front we're seeing: New Zealand, Germany. We've got Austria, Bridgestone, and the Portuguese team. The Portuguese team have done very well. Narciso and Leitao. And Leitao's got a good turn of speed. He bridged them across to this group, leading group of 5 now.
The peloton has really stepped on the gas, though. That's why it's made it a bit more difficult for this group to try and bridge the gap and take a lap on the field. They were almost there, and then it was the British team that went on the attack, and it really has strung the field out, and they are splintered all the way around the Adelaide Superdrome. Desperate moments here in the men's Madison as New Zealand and Germany come through for the next sprint. 121 laps to go, and New Zealand up round the outside. So Germany, as they're getting back towards the stragglers, the back end of the peloton, very high into the finishing straight here. New Zealand will pick up the 5 points. That was significant. Germany, in the traffic, missed the change. So they have really been found out there, the Germans. Just as they got to the back of the peloton, there was too much traffic, really dangerous.
It hasn't cost them too dearly. I mean, fortunately, they were able to right their wrong, change, throw in. Reinhardt got thrown in, and the top 5 is back together. It's quite messy out there now. I think it's a little bit difficult to follow because they did gain the lap and then keep going in that scenario. They gained a lap on half of the group, not on the front of the group, so it hasn't been counted yet, but that's why it looked so messy, passing through a lot of the traffic.
So the peloton itself had really stepped on the gas to try and avoid this lap from being taken, but I'm not sure how willing they are to keep it going now. This is the breakaway group. The New Zealanders, Stewart and Gate. Wow, they have been strong. 19 points. They lead the way with Germany on 14.
And the peloton have all but given up, and they will take the lap now. So that is now the front of the race. 20 points for the 5 teams of New Zealand, Germany, Team Bridgestone, Portugal, and Austria.
Well, now they can have a deep breath, but 20 points added to the total. New Zealand were already on 19, Germany on 14. So this is going to make a significant change to the overall standings. And for the teams like Great Britain, Italy, Japan, Belgium, they may need to try and go on the attack themselves and get themselves also a lap in the 20 points. It's going to be hard to fight back here just in the sprints throughout towards the finish. 113 laps to go. Moment of pause, with Germany going straight to the front, just showing how strong they are. Take a lap on the field, then go straight to the very front of the peloton again.
We've still got to stay out of trouble because we saw them get stuck in the traffic, miss a turn. That could really come a cropper, but they have gone straight to the front again. This is how they've been riding for the whole race. Some movement here from the Belgian team. I thought we might see an attack there, but they have steadied up once they've hit the wheel of Great Britain. Coming in for the bell. And the Germans, they are determined to keep getting points despite their position on the chart.
Tarling from Great Britain up onto the outside there of Roger Kluge, and Great Britain will be able to get the points here. Kluge was in fairly early for that sprint, so no, not too difficult there for Tarling to pick up the 5 points, and he has continued on with it. So this is showing some strength, some maturity from the young man from Great Britain. They missed out on the lap gain, and now they want to try and do it themselves, but they will have Germany chasing them. Theo Reinhardt is trying to come up to the back now of Ollie Wood as Tarling makes the change.
And this is where New Zealand really need to pay attention, because Germany have put themselves in a perfect position. Great time to attack from the Great Britain team. Did need to make up some points. But here we are, Team Switzerland and Team New Zealand are not waiting around. We can see the German team, the British team, and the Australians trying to create a gap, trying to see if they can catch the bunch napping, but New Zealand will not make it happen. We'll see them in shot now. There they are, shutting it down. Take a bit of energy. They won't want to drop concentration like that again.
4 teams together at the front. They are about to be joined by the black colours of New Zealand. Now, they were just a little bit further back in the bunch during that last sprint, which opened up the gap, and that's why they had to defend very quickly, New Zealand, and they seem to have the strength to have no issues with that whatsoever. So Team Bridgestone sitting in 3rd place. Great riding by them, with Austria in 4th, Portugal in 5th, along with New Zealand and Germany leading 1st and 2nd. They are the 5 teams that have taken a lap on the field. The best of the rest so far is Great Britain on 14 points. But they are 6 points behind Portugal, who sit 1 place above them in 5th. 104 laps to go. Great Britain on the front make the change. And again, the pace has finally come back off somewhat. One team is out of the race. That's the team from Indonesia. Just coming through the bottom of the shot there, actually. The Indonesian team have lost 2 laps on the field, so they've been taken out of the race. Did well to make the final in the first place, it must be said, Indonesia. Next sprint, not too far away now. So Bell this time. There's the Indonesian team that has come out, and it's Portugal. They took a lap on the field, so they're right up in the hunt. They sit in 5th overall, but it is again New Zealand that come down the back straight, and the gap has opened up to the 3rd team leading the peloton. So can New Zealand, after picking up the 5 points here, go on with it? And I think they might. Aaron Gate, such a strong rider. If you're looking for Campbell Stewart, look over the shoulder there from Gate. And the change not too far away from being made, I think. And they've kept the pressure on. Even if they don't try and go for the lap, keep a bit of pressure on just so the gap maintains and everyone else has to dig a little bit deeper to try and close it down.
Well, especially when some of the teams that they took a lap with are slightly off the back, they'll need to improve their position. The Germans found themselves a little bit out of place there, unusual for what we've seen for the most part in this race today. Great Britain, they look like they're policing the front. They look like they've got legs, but it's going to be difficult for them because there's now 5 teams that are prepared to chase them if they try and get a lap, rather than 1 or 2. And when you've got the might of New Zealand and Germany amongst those 5, it puts them in a pretty tough position. But they're the best of the rest. They're sitting in 6th with 15 points. They're featured prominently in a lot of sprints, but they kind of missed a trick with that attack.
Well, with New Zealand and Germany looking so strong, you still look at Team Bridgestone, Austria and Portugal. They don't look weak. They just haven't been as dominant in these sprints. And again, well, there's more proof of that because this is Austria now that's gone off the front. They sit in 4th place overall, one of the 5 teams that have taken a lap on the field. So they don't look that weak at all. They are super strong, and it's Great Britain that are trying to get across to them.
The pairing of Schmidbauer and Ritzinger have really put on an impressive show, actually. Again, they started quite slow. We didn't see a lot of them in the first 50 laps, but they are well and truly involved now. They're past the halfway, 200 laps in total, so only just. But we're really starting to see the race get fleshed out. Great Britain on the march to try and jump across. We know that Austria want to differentiate themselves from New Zealand, Germany, Bridgestone and Portugal, and so they will definitely work, and this could be the ride, the lift that the Great British team really needed. It is mutually beneficial.
Next sprint coming up as they come around to the start-finish line. Change from Great Britain. Austria make their change, so 5 points on offer once more. 91 laps to go, and they have a significant lead over the rest of the field. Josh Tarling out of the saddle, trying to finish this one off to pick up the 5 points. They need them. They sit in 6th place overall on 15. They get the 5 here. Austria will get the 3, and now they continue on the job to try and take a lap on the field. New Zealand just pop over the top of Bridgestone to get the 3 points, and they've also continued on.
British team and the Austrians are looking very comfortable in the break, but it may determine whether they stay out there or not. Not necessarily how they're working well together, because they are a good combination, albeit a little bit mismatched in some of the accelerations. But will New Zealand continue the pressure to come across, or will it be Bridgestone that try to bring them back?
Well, confirmation of that previous sprint, but I must say Ritzinger from Austria is starting to struggle. You could see it before he went to the front before with Ollie Wood. Now they make the change. This is good for Ritzinger because his legs are really starting to hurt. Schmidt-Bauer has come in to replace him, and Tarling replaces Ollie Wood. Not far behind them, though, we can see New Zealand coming into the home straight. So they're looking over the shoulder to see what damage they're doing to the peloton, and I can tell you it's an enormous amount of damage.
Well, you can see the New Zealand team driving the pace in the background, and they will bridge across, but it has cost them a lot of effort. It's also cost the British team a lot of effort too. We did see Ritzinger really starting to struggle from the Austrian team. It's these moments of vulnerability when they've just put in a really big effort that can really define the shape of the race. Which team has enough legs to go over the top? Because the more you're hurting, you can pretty much assume everybody's hurting in that scenario. Or almost a bit of a dicey change from the New Zealand team there after that big chase across.
One of the big nations that is a little bit invisible at the moment is Italy. Elia Viviani and Michele Scartazzini. So they are struggling just to the back there on the right-hand side. So that's Viviani just bridging the gap up to the Australian team. And we have several teams that have lost contact with the peloton out the back as we see Germany pop over the top once more. Theo Reinhardt just picking the pace up. So New Zealand lead the way on 46, Germany 37, then it's Austria 28, and another sprint, 81 laps to go, and it will be Germany again. Roger Kluge lead into this sprint. New Zealand with a really timely change down the back straight. Can Aaron Gate reel in the big German? Around the final bend, and Kluge has enough to hold on. So there's another 5 points that go to Germany. New Zealand with 3, so it's only 2 points they've gained in that sprint. Germany over New Zealand. So it doesn't do too much damage to the overall lead of New Zealand.
No, now you might have noticed Team Belgium just lost a lap as they came through for that sprint there. So they started very strong, but they are now going to lose 20 points to be on minus 11.
Good attack here from the Japanese team, Bridgestone. They sit in 3rd place overall, but they've gone over the top of New Zealand. Not a good team to attack over the top of. They are so strong, the New Zealanders.
But New Zealand have swung to the top of the track. They can't do every chase. They can't be the one that responds to every attack, especially when you've had 5 teams that took that lap in the first place. Germany, they need to step up, and that's a big opportunity for Team Bridgestone because they know that the New Zealand team have just done a very big chase to bring the Great Britain team back.
Bridgestone just catching 3 teams that have gone a lap down, and Bridgestone swinging up to try and get some support from those 3 teams, but they've been dropped. Don't worry about too much about them. You've got to keep pushing forward, Bridgestone. So not good tactics from the Japanese team. Great to get off the front, but don't think you're going to get anything out of these 3 teams, Poland, Canada and Switzerland. They are deep in the hurt bag.
Yeah, they've just been lapped another time. And so they're not going to get a lot of support out of them, but if for no other reason than they don't have a lot of legs. The Polish team, they stood up and earned some points. They made a few really brave attacks early and got 6 points on the board. But they've really faded in the classification now. Team Bridgestone, they've got a bunch, but they're on their own in wanting to drive this break back.
Shunsuke Imamura now on the front, trying to push this forward. He was the one that went on the attack, and unfortunately Aya Hashimoto, his teammate, starting to struggle a little bit. There has been a big move out of the peloton, and it's the actual Japanese national team. They've come out after this leading group. 71 laps to go. Next sprint, and it's Hashimoto that leads through. There's the second team of Japan that has just gone past. Peloton now, you hear the bell in the background. That was the New Zealand team that led across the line. So Hashimoto picks up the 5 points for Bridgestone. And And the Japanese second team, the national team, 3 points for them in second place. Just remember that the Poland, Canada and Switzerland sitting behind Bridgestone here, they are just passengers.
There's a lot of red and white in the skin suits here. New Zealand came across the line next for the 3rd points. Italy took the 4th point, but Italy are a lap down. So they started really well, the pairing of Viviani and Scartazzini. But we still do have a significant lead from Team New Zealand on 51 points.
New Zealanders are now trying to come across with Italy. So 67 laps to go. And Bridgestone still lead the way. Japan just getting onto the back of that group of 4 now. And we can see the gap back to New Zealand and Italy. Bridgestone again as Hashimoto comes in. So that's confirmation of the previous sprint. Bridgestone, Japan, New Zealand, and then Italy. And they're swinging up the track here. So now the Japanese team that came across are able to get to the front and try and contribute to this. So the 2 Japanese teams, Japan national team and also the Bridgestone trade team, can work together against the rest of the peloton.
Well, the Bridgestone team are in a position to be a medal. They're on the podium at the moment. Only 5 points ahead of Austria, who are sitting in 4th. Team Bridgestone are sitting in 3rd. 9 points adrift of the German team.
And it's all going to come back together, though. So both those Japanese teams not with enough strength to try and force their way ahead of the peloton. So Germany close it down. And New Zealand did a lot of work in the chasing previously to that. 63 laps to go.
The pace has come off for the first time in a while. All of the teams are carrying a fair bit of fatigue.
And an opportunity to then move back up again. New Zealand getting themselves back into a good position, as does Great Britain. Another lap and the next of the sprints is about to happen. Germany just popping off the front here. Lap and a half to go for this sprint. Australia trying to salvage something from this one as well. So Kluger, the European champion for Germany, comes through. Japan in second. And then it's Portugal with a bit of speed coming up to the back of Germany. There's the Aussies. They're a little bit further behind, but around the final bend, Germany fighting off Portugal, but they can't do it. So Portugal pick up 5 points. They're sitting in 5th place overall, remember. The last of the lowest placed of the teams that gained a lap on the field.
Well, it's important for them to keep accruing points to try and move up onto the podium, but also Great Britain have now surpassed the 20-point mark, so they have not taken a lap, but are still in the hunt for a medal potentially. 33 to 21 is the range between 3rd place and 6th place at the moment, but they're running out of time. 58 laps left to go, and it's very difficult for a team like Great Britain to take a lap now, because in the closing parts, a lot of fatigue setting in, but also New Zealand, Germany, Team Bridgestone, Portugal, Austria, they're just solidifying their positions after putting the effort into that break. It is quite interesting watching what's happening between Team Bridgestone and the Japanese national team. Usually we don't see much collusion between the national teams in this kind of event. In fact, sometimes quite the opposite, trying to make sure that they can get their spot and go one up. But it may be a scenario where it's not so much collusion, but they're looking after each other.
.55 laps to go. Germany once more on the front. Now New Zealand taking over. Japan, Bridgestone, Italy in the blue colours. And after a little bit of respite and rest and recuperation, now getting ready for the next of the intermediate sprints. New Zealand, Germany, Bridgestone, Portugal, and Austria. They are the teams that took a lap on the field, 20 extra points for doing so. But a nice handy lead there for New Zealand on the top of the table. Great Britain still remain the best of the rest. 21 points they've gained throughout the sprints.
There's still a lot of points left to gain, so it might look quite comfortable for New Zealand at the moment, but they're only 1 or 2 sprints away from losing that to Germany in particular. Bridgestone, they're a little bit further back. New Zealand and Germany will start shadowing each other.
Next sprint coming up, and change for both teams. First and second in the overall standings, and into the next sprint, New Zealand versus Germany. Bridgestone in third, Great Britain in fourth, Italy back there in fifth place. But the strength of New Zealand tonight, getting the job done. Another 5 points for them. 3 points will go to Germany. Bridgestone, I think, may have held on for third place. Wait for confirmation. But up in front, New Zealand and Germany. Another 2 points gained versus Germany. New Zealand doing very well here.
Well, New Zealand riding very smart and very comfortably. An extra 2 point advantage just makes it all the more harder for them to get points in the final quarter of the race now. Everybody's pretty tired, and we can see some wild changes happening all over the track. It's not nearly as neat as it was in that first 50 laps. The British team, they're persisting. They're still trying to see if they can put some damage in. New Zealand, they don't necessarily need to chase Great Britain, because even if they were to gain a lap and gain 20 points, they would still find themselves well adrift of the New Zealand team. But it's habit. The New Zealanders don't need to be the ones to chase everything, but they do certainly need to stay out of trouble and keep an eye on where the German team is.
Keeping the pressure on out in front. The Kiwis, New Zealand, Germany up there as well, as always. Consistently, New Zealand, Germany, Bridgestone, right, very close to the front, the top three teams. Austria were looking strong, have dropped down to fifth place now. So there's Bridgestone and Japan, but Bridgestone sitting in third place on 34 points. Portugal on 30 and Austria on 28. So still very close if you're looking at that final place on the podium. Bridgestone up around the outside, flipping over the top of the Australians to get right close to the front. 43 laps to go. The next sprint not too far away. And a bit of docking and weaving there as well, as New Zealand have gone on the attack. So they're showing real strength. They've been the strongest team so far, really strong in the sprints, plus taking a lap on the field, and they continue to attack New Zealand. The next sprint coming up, and they've got a nice handy 5 bike length lead over Germany as they go into this sprint lap. Roger Kluger down the back straight into the slipstream of Aaron Gate. Can he close it down? Yes, he can. Now he has to get up around the outside, and they will pick up the 5 points. So Germany are not out of this one, that is for sure. So another 2 points back on New Zealand by getting over the top there. Italy also in the mix still. Third place for them, and Great Britain were fourth. Six points is the difference now between New Zealand and Germany. Plenty of points on offer with double points on that final sprint. Austria looked as if they had some intent then, but unfortunately had their attack blocked. Unintentionally.
New Zealand and Germany are well ahead. Bridgestone, they're back adrift on 34 points. So nearly 20 points separating first and second from then the battle for third. Portugal and Team Bridgestone, they will still be watching each other. And Austria is up there as well. Now, Great Britain have, theoretically, they could get themselves onto the podium if they won the final sprint and kept a few more points along the way. They will want to keep their eye on it.
Attack from Japan. Italy is trying to counteract. Kaboki, it is that's in the race. It was Kojima that made the attack. Scartazzini has bridged the gap off the change of Viviani, and Great Britain with Ollie Wood also going up there now, and a big gap starting to open up. So these three teams not involved in the lap gain earlier tonight, but Japan sit in 7th place overall on 13 points. It'll be handy for them if they want to get themselves onto the podium, if they can get the 20 points that's on offer for gaining a lap on the field.
It certainly will. There will be some desperate moves. There have been in the past laps taken in the dying moments of a race. So 33 laps is less likely a lap will go than earlier in the race, but it's certainly not impossible. And with so much fatigue setting in, it only takes one dropped wheel before you find yourself in a little bit of strife.
If Great Britain can take this lap and get the 20 points for it, they'll go up to 44 points, an outright third position. So this is really beneficial to Great Britain and Japan, and they are around about half a lap from the back of the peloton as they come into this next sprint. 31 laps to go.
Even if they don't take the lap, for Great Britain to continue accruing points, they can still get themselves onto the podium. So they're doing a really great job here of solidifying their effort.
Ollie Wood picks up the 5 points. That's very handy to have in the pocket, just ahead of Italy, Scartazzini.
Well, that now catapults Great Britain to 5th on the table, ahead of Austria, who did take a lap. 1 point adrift of Portugal in 4th. So they're certainly moving making the move up the podium. And there isn't a chase in earnest going on, because the German team is not chasing. The New Zealand team, they are not chasing. Kluger has been out changing a mechanical, so the German team have not been chasing on purpose. They've just been holding on and making sure they can mitigate any damage. The British team with the Japanese team and the Italians are now half a lap up and gaining. This is last minute, but this is exciting action.
So the 3-team breakaway out in front. Italy, Japan and Great Britain. Roger Kluger is back in the race now after having that wheel change. Hopefully it didn't take them too long. And Tao Reinhardt didn't have to waste too much energy back in the peloton.
Well, Reinhardt did a good position, just holding a good job, just holding position and not wasting any energy. But they're going to get the lap. Now, this is very impressive.
So the lap is about to be taken now. 3 teams about to come onto the back of the peloton, and that'll be 20 points for each of these teams. This changes everything in the race for the podium. Great Britain will go right up into 3rd place overall. Japan will also be right there as well. So they go to 4th position. 49 points for Great Britain. They are very close to Germany as well. They're only 4 points off the silver medal. So that really has changed everything.
Sensational show of tenacity from the British team to gain that lap back. And for Italy as well. They were poorly positioned when that lap was taken.
22 laps to go. Sprint coming up. Australia sit on the front of the peloton. And a recap. New Zealand on 59, Germany 53. Then it's Great Britain now on 49 points, only 4 points off the silver medal. Italy coming around. It's Elia Viviani that will get the bell first. Japan, Australia, Team Bridgestone, Checha underneath as well. And here comes New Zealand up and around the outside. And they all seem to be hesitating into that sprint lap. And New Zealand said, well, I'll take the 5 points. Don't worry about that. So Aaron Campbell-Stewart that pops over the top, picks up the 5 points and has also continued on. They weren't doing any of the chasing while those 3 teams gained that last lap. They've saved some energy and now they're on the hunt.
They've still got a substantial lead, 62 points. Germany are the next best, back on 53. The German team have to watch their backs for the British team. There's now only 4 points separating them. The podium is coming together very clearly. Italy, they did pick up 1 point in that last sprint, but it's a little bit too little too late.
Portugal lead the way with New Zealand trying to come across. There is a bit of a scramble back on the peloton, but Portugal sit in 6th place, 35 points.
Now, they've been really strong today in gaining that lap, but a bit inconsistent in the points gathering along the way, which is why they find themselves back in 6th. 8 teams have taken a lap now.
Japan did miss a change in that last viewing as they came through. That might hurt them a little bit. 2 teams off the front. Germany, desperate. They need to do something to try and keep themselves in the hunt for the gold here, but Portugal and New Zealand with 15 laps to go. There are 2 more sprints coming. Double points on the final sprint, and they are almost half a lap from the back of the peloton.
Well, they're racing to the very death of this race. 14 laps left to go. But New Zealand, Portugal, they're going for another lap. This would catapult Portugal up into 2nd place. It would only give New Zealand a more solid lead than they already have, but it would mean that Germany and Great Britain, they would be fighting for that bronze medal.
Roger Kluger now desperately trying to shut this down. Remember, he only just recently got back onto the track after having a wheel change. So unfortunate situation for the Germans to have that go on while this was all happening out on the track. But now Roger Kluge trying to close this down. Great Britain are trying to chase down the Germans, and it has sprinted the peloton as Portugal come through for the penultimate sprint lap. And Portugal lead down the back straight. New Zealand sitting in second position. Another 5 points on offer, and the New Zealanders up around the outside. So they'll gain the 5 points with only one more sprint to come. So they are looking very good for the overall standings now, but Germany will get the 2 points on offer for third. They're not so much worrying about the points. They want to try and shut this attack down, but we are now inside the final 10 laps.
They've done a very good job of mitigating the loss, and this break has come significantly closer back together. New Zealand and Portugal were looking like they were just about to tack onto the back of what's left of the bunch. Not a lot. They are in absolute pieces, but Kluge is relentless. Wood is trying to get back onto the wheel of the German team just to cut their losses. They're running out of time to get this lap. Germany need to keep going. Great Britain need to keep going.
Reminder there, double points on the final sprint. Lurie Leitão from Portugal absolutely driving this, the world omnium champion. He has really stood up in the last 18 months, Leitão. New Zealand doing a fantastic job here. 67 points. They lead the way coming towards this final sprint. They are just about to get towards the back of the peloton, and they can do that in the next couple of laps. Portugal will catapult themselves up into the silver medal position. Austria on the attack off the front of the peloton as well, trying to salvage something. They've dropped down to 8th place. They haven't done much since they picked up that lap gain. And with 5 laps to go, Portugal will probably be the first of those two teams off the front to get to the back of the field, if they can do so.
Well, New Zealand has dropped back from Portugal. It's quite hard to see where a bunch is, where the break is. Portugal have tacked onto the back of what is remaining as the bunch. The commissaires pointing to Portugal as the front of the race still.
Austria make the change at the front of the peloton. Portugal still have not made contact with the main group. They're in that second group here now coming into the main straight. So Portugal there, New Zealand just behind them. They're now just catching the stragglers off the back of the peloton, and they are not going to gain a lap on the field now. That is clear. They're coming around for 2 laps to go, and they will not be able to shut that down in these next 500 metres. The sprint is on out in front for the remnants of the peloton to pick up the minor points that are still on offer.
Well, Portugal may win the sprint, but they can't win the race. That will go to New Zealand.
As they come through now with 1 lap to go, it is Portugal that's going to lead the way into this final sprint, and they have given it to them. So Portugal get the final points on offer, 10 points to them. New Zealand, they pick up 6 points for second. Switzerland come across the line to get 4 points in third place, with Great Britain picking up the final points. They pick up 2 in 4th place. But it all went the way of New Zealand. What an incredible and dominant performance it was from Campbell Stewart and Aaron Gate.
That was quite relentless, and they won very convincingly. Germany put in an exceptionally good performance. Very hard timing for them to be one rider down when Kluge had to change his wheel. And it really meant that Reinhardt had to just mitigate his losses. It meant that they missed the opportunity when New Zealand did take a flyer and attempt to take that lap. Now, they didn't take the lap, but they got quite a lot of points on the way. 73 points in the end to Germany back on 55. Great Britain will finish in third. Quite a rousing welcome to the New Zealand team. Campbell Stewart coming up to the fence. He's got some family coming down to give him some congratulatory hugs. It's fantastic to see his mates here to support him.
Great riding by New Zealand. Germany, they were almost out of the silver medal then, with Portugal so close to getting a lap on the field. They held on really well there. Roger Kluge salvaged the silver by going on that last moment attack. Reinhardt also able to capitalise on the ability of his big German teammate. So New Zealand with gold, Germany in silver, and a great fight back from Great Britain to get themselves up into the bronze medal position. Youngster Josh Tarling along with Ollie Wood. We did actually have a brief chat with Tarling this afternoon, Kate. He was a little bit nervous about coming into the Madison, and he's really held himself very well by finishing third.
I thought you were going to say he was nervous chatting to us. Possibly.
Oh, he was starstruck.
Possibly
for sure.
he was. Yeah, we went to meet him because I wanted to say hello. I've been chatting to his father, Father Michael, and his mother, Dawn. Are very proactive on social media and in supporting Josh and highlighting his career. So the team from the Wheelhouse podcast tried to get down there and meet him. But Josh, he hasn't got a lot of international Madison experience at this level. He is an accomplished teams pursuit rider. He's an exceptional road rider and individual time trialist. But he can do just about anything. He was second at the World Championships last year, but he rode with Mark Stewart to accomplish that. And the British do have a pretty strong history in Madison riding, but that was such a dominant show from the New Zealand team. It really was. I mean, we've seen them excel before internationally, but that's got to be one of the better rides I've seen from them.
Absolutely. 73 points in total. Almost put another 20 on top of that by gaining a lap. But in the end, 73 points versus 55 for Germany. And look back at the race, they were so dominant towards the front. Both Germany and New Zealand spent so much of the time in the first 5-6 teams, which is also saving them so much energy throughout the race. I don't know if they needed it, though, because they were definitely the strongest two teams out there.
Well, 50 kilometres in 52 minutes and 33 seconds, 57 kilometre an hour average. They're clipping around pretty quick. There were some younger and less experienced teams out there that made it a little bit messy as they were just finding their feet. But there's only one way to learn how to ride an International Madison, and that's to ride an International Madison.
And I'll give you a bit of a technical input to that. So 57.088 kilometres per hour, but each time a lap is gained, it becomes one lap shorter. And with a couple of laps that were gained means that the race wasn't the full 200 laps in the end. It may have been 1 or 2 laps shorter, which
and
increased the average speed.
We lost the 2 laps because when it stopped, it was at 191 and they restarted at 189. So I think it was probably 49 kilometres for a number of the riders. 4 laps shy.
Plenty of them would be happy with that.
Yeah, I think so.
Roger Kluger, the European champ. Silver medal here in Adelaide. No crashes as well, which is fantastic to see.
And unusual.
Yep.
But and I must say there were a few hairy moments, a few gasps from the crowd and from us here. Blake Agneletto provided everybody with a little bit of a heart starter early on. But it's really great to see the New Zealand family and friends who've come over to support the riders, because it's a home Nations Cup for the Australians, but it pretty much is for New Zealand too, because Europe and Asia is much further abroad for them to travel to watch the athletes perform. And we've got Ali Wollaston up again in the women's omnium soon, and she's been shining very bright for New Zealand.
And much less expensive for the Southern Hemisphere nations to have a World Cup here. I think the Italians, it cost them around about 100,000 euros to come out. So if you times that by all of the European nations, quite a costly enterprise.
Well, it is, but the Australians, of course, and the New Zealand teams have to do that every time to go the other direction.
This is where we are. It's the Adelaide Superdrome, Jeps Cross, and we can see the Adelaide Hills, wonderful Adelaide Hills, been the training facility, both the hills and the velodrome, for so many years with the Australian cycling team riders and the Australian Institute of Sport groups and squads going back previously. Certainly is a wonderful facility. And the wine regions to the north, east and south of Adelaide, the Barossa Valley, the Clare Valley, both of those are in the northern regions and northeastern regions. McLaren Vale to the south. And we look at the faces of the competitors about to come onto the track. Azazul Awang is going to be racing against this big man on the left. That's Matthew Glaitzer. Kaya Ota to the right. He's going to be coming out against Matthew Richardson, racing for the gold medal. But the bronze, that will be contested by Glaitzer and Awang. There's Matthew Richardson. Gold medal in the team sprint. That was on the first day, so 3 days of competition here. We're in the final afternoon of racing now. And Matthew Richardson, along with Tom Cornish, Matthew Glaitzer and Lee Hoffman, winning the gold medal here at the UCI Track Nations Cup in the team sprint. Silver medal for them in the World Championships in Glasgow last year. And they were the gold medalist, world champions in 2022. So they are going towards Paris and the Olympic Games. Perhaps not as equal favourites with the Netherlands, but they are definitely a warm favourite to get themselves onto the podium. What colour medal? That's what they're going to have to wait and find out. Kimberly Conti on the right. Just checking the start order for these riders, as Matthew Glaetzer and Azazul Arwang have already made their selection. Now Matthew Richardson and Kaya Ota making their selection. When they come up for the second race, they reverse those positions on the start line. Men's sprint finals. Race for the bronze medal. Just about to come onto the track. Arwang versus Glaetzer. Matthew Glaetzer, a former sprint world champion. Azazul Arwang, former keirin world champion. And Arwang won the keirin in day 2 of the competition. The nervous moments for these riders, and fortunately for both Ota and Glaetzer, it's not their direct opponent they're sitting next to. I always feel it's somewhat awkward when you're sitting right there, or they show us the two riders that are going to be doing battle on the track, sitting right beside each other in the marshalling area. Very warm conditions here inside the Superdrome today. Each day has been slightly warmer than the previous, and then that residual heat just staying in here as well, just making it quite toasty, but very fast conditions. And we've seen that in these sprint rounds today. While they're not out there racing 4 times as they did in the opening sprint qualification for their seeding, but the times they've been riding just throughout these sprint rounds have been quite extraordinary. Finally, Matthew Glaetzer now coming out onto the track. And he will be joined by Azazul Arwang, superstar from Malaysia. So former world champion this discipline, Matthew Glaetzer now lines up. And as we can now see, and it's why we have not seen Azazul Arwang, he is unable to take to the start line. We did talk about Azazul's heart condition. He had open heart surgery 18 months ago, and while he did win the keirin last night, I know that he had some health concerns coming into this competition, and they were very cautious about how hard he was getting pushed, and I think they've made the right decision just to make sure that there's not too much pressure on that heart of his. So a walkover for Matthew Glaetzer, as he will get the bronze medal, with Azazul Arwang unable to take to the start line.
He's certainly a crowd favourite. It's not the way that he would have wanted to get the bronze medal either. He would have wanted to race for it, but nevertheless, you can only compete against who is there, and we hope that Arwang recovers quickly. This heat is certainly having quite a profound effect on a lot of the athletes. And Maddie Richardson will be next out on track. Kaya Ota. The Australian crowd here are pretty hyped up after seeing New Zealand ride so well. It's a bit of an Australian thing. If an Australian can't win, you're happy for a New Zealander to win, and then we can claim them. So they are cheering very loudly. Richardson and Ota.
Third and final day of competition here at the UCI Track Nations Cup in Adelaide. But big program for all of the riders, including the sprinters. Team sprint, keirin, and now sprint, and all the rounds from qualifying through to this final. So some tired riders that are on the track now, but they have to push that aside, focus on getting everything through the pedals. There is no more pain. They just have to focus on trying to get the win here. Kaya Ota up against Matthew Richardson. So the former gymnast in Richardson versus the former rower in Ota. Who's going to be the fastest cyclist? That's the question now in the men's sprint final. Ota drawing position number 1, obligated to lead for the first half lap, 3 laps of the track in total. And if he wants to try and force Richardson to the front, he can try to do so, but that's only after he passes the halfway point down the back straight this time.
Well, Richardson comes in with a lot of confidence. He was the fastest qualifier today, but he's also on a track that he trains at. This is his home training venue. He knows this track inside out. He has ridden every scenario possible in a sprint, in training at least, trying to replicate what does happen here in racing, but he knows the boards exceptionally well. Ota, he performed amazingly, wonderfully yesterday in the keirin. He's very calm, very respectful, but Richardson stalks from the back.
Now out of the saddle, both riders not completely full gas just yet as they come around to get the bell this time. This is the first of the best of 3 races in the men's sprint final here in Adelaide, and it's Kaya Ota that leads into the final lap. Matthew Richardson really quickly up round the outside. Ota forced off the track itself with the speed of Richardson passing him. So Matthew Richardson goes 1 up in the best of 3 in the men's sprint final, and that was very comfortable indeed for the Australian.
Very comfortable win for him, very confident win. Normally when he does win, he really shows the crowd how pleased he is. Straight away, he'll give them a big wave. Not this time. He's really in the zone. It's the first time in a long time I haven't seen him give the crowd a big wave. In fact, we were discussing it this morning that it doesn't matter whether it's first round, whether he beats somebody who qualified a full second slower than him, he still really salutes the crowd and gives them a little bit of support, but you can tell just how focused he is. You'll also notice how narrow the bars are these days that the sprinters are riding. So narrow at the top that their hands almost touch when they're together, and that is very much for aerodynamics, but it does affect the bike handling as well.
Ota leads into the final lap, and very fast, rapid acceleration there from Matthew Richardson. And Kaya Ota at this point knew that the race was done. So easing off, thinking about the next race to come. Has to win the next one against Richardson, but gee, it's such a blow to the confidence when you get beaten so convincingly.
It is. Richardson ducked ever so slightly into the sprinter's line there, but it didn't cause any damage or any slowing of Ota in doing so. The commissaires we expect, look over that.
You can see the riders coming out onto the track now, and that's the women coming out for their 3rd discipline within the 4-discipline omnium event, and that's the elimination race. That was the actual outright elimination was won by Ali Wollaston on the first day of competition. That was her 2nd gold medal for the night after picking up the team pursuit as well. So we'd have to pencil her in as the favourite for this one, but we've had a bunch of races already and it's a different scenario now. Let's see how Ali Wollaston can do in the omnium elimination.
Event 3 of the 4 in the omnium. There's our final Madison standings. Look at the lead by New Zealand there, 73 points to Germany on 55. Great Britain 52. They did very well to get themselves back into the race. And there's Spain in 10th, Switzerland, Poland, Canada, and down to Indonesia. Indonesia did well. They started well, but then when they started to struggle, it came undone fairly quickly. Now half of the riders will be at the fence. Half of the riders will line up down the bottom and be held up by team handlers. There's Ali Wollaston, rider number 228. Right in front of the big New Zealand contingent too, I might add, in the stand. So a nice place for her to start. And that's a great shot, isn't it? Jennifer Valente in the World Champions colours there. So there's confirmation that Matthew Richardson has been awarded that win. He'll go into the next gold medal round, 1 up on Kaya Ota.
Women's omnium elimination race. 3rd leg of the omnium event. Ali Wollaston leads the way at the moment. seeded number 1. That's why she sits at the top of the track in position number 1 down the bottom, 2nd place overall. Katie Archibald. Then it's Lara Gillespie, Jennifer Valente. And great to see Gillespie sitting in 3rd place, riding for Ireland. So she's doing really well. There's Katie Archibald from Great Britain.
The places have changed around a fair bit from what we thought were the standings after that tempo race. But with Wollaston, her outcome changed. She got relegated from one of the sprints. So Wollaston, Archibald, Gillespie in 3rd, Valente sitting in 4th. Sevakova is in 5th.
And we are underway. Last rider across the line on every 2nd lap will be eliminated. This is the one race where you focus at the back of the peloton, not at the front. And they'll come through this time to get the bell. So the first elimination lap is now underway. And Mexico right at the very back there in a bit of danger. Acevedo very high on the track. And while she's last, she's got some room to go up around the outside, so maybe you can focus down the bottom a little bit more when there's a rush from up above, or maybe a very nervous rider that's also now going out that could be the first one to go.
That was rider number 332, Margarita Misurina.
She looked more nervous than anything as the bunch went right up towards the fence. I don't think she was too willing to push through.
No, Maria Martins from Portugal found herself in a bit of trouble but got saved. Now, she's just caused a bit of a wave trying to get out and get herself to safety, and she has done so. Shei Wei Ling is in a dangerous spot, the rider from Hong Kong.
Oh, Stenberg, the European champion. Wow, that's a big one. 2nd rider to go out, the European champion. She'll be disappointed with that.
She was sitting in 10th overall, so that's a tough elimination from her. The bell again this time. I mean, it's a reminder for Stenberg that often the most dangerous position is not actually at the top or the bottom, it's in the middle. Katie Archibald in a bit of a precarious situation in the middle there too now. She'll have to pull out the back and move around to stay out of trouble. Oh, Fidanza, the Italian rider. She was the World Scratch Race champion in 2022. She is fighting to get the omnium spot for the Olympics over Paternoster for the Italian team. That's a bit of a blow for her.
Into the next elimination lap. Once again, it's not always the last rider across the line. The officials are also looking for any infringements that may be happening, and you're definitely not allowed to improve your position down the bottom on the light blue band. So they're also focusing towards the bottom of the track as well as the very back. And that was Zablinskaya from Uzbekistan.
Olga Zablinskaya was Junior World Championship medalist back in 2000. Fair to say she's a very experienced rider. 1999, pardon me. She's been around for a long time.
Kajihara from Japan, the Asian continental champion. She's quickly up around the outside, so she'll be out of danger now. Lee from Hong Kong, once again down the bottom in the red colours. Can she find some space down there? I think she may have. Might have squeezed back in.
It was Vankovits from Poland who was out there. She's had a bit of a struggle today. Didn't have a good tempo race. She's out of the elimination now. Ali Wollaston finding herself up toward the back. Oh, look how tight that is. Gee.
Really tight.
Judges don't have an easy job.
Wollaston and Archibald towards the back, but Wollaston up around the outside, so that's not such an issue for her. Cost her a little bit of energy, though. And Gillespie from Ireland. So Gillespie is the next to go. She was sitting in 3rd place in the overall standings. She'll be disappointed with that. Nowhere to go. And got caught behind.
Well, the bell sounds again, and we've got Jasmine Luchty from Switzerland is the one who needs to do the work now to move up. As the bunch gets smaller and the pace gets higher, it's harder to advance up around the outside. But you can have some desperate moves, and then it's the riders in the middle that gets stuck. Oh, it
Right down the bottom, I think. Ling it was. So Huan Ting Ling from Taipei is the next one to go. The blue colours down the bottom. Also keep an eye towards the front every now and then to see who's pushing the pace into the winds. They might be out of danger, but they're also putting a lot of pressure through the legs to keep themselves right at the very front.
Georgia Baker's been doing a fair amount of work up there as well. Nia Evans got herself in a bit of trouble at the back. She's now moved all the way up to the front. And a tight elimination there. It's 2:11 from Spain. Yukina Larate, who is eliminated on that occasion.
3 abreast down the front. But we see Kachihara that is slightly off the front, not really committed to try and stay away as she backs herself into the peloton. Up at the back of the peloton, though, it's Ali Wollaston yet again. That's a couple of times we've seen her right towards the back. Lee in a bit of danger in the red colours. She goes up the track to try and get a bit of extra speed, and she will be okay. It's Mexico, Acevedo. Ureli Acevedo is the next one to go. It's much easier down the bottom of the track, but that's what happens sometimes when there's a big rush from behind and there has been a crash. So Nia Evans has gone down. So they will have a neutralisation to allow her a maximum of 5 laps to be able to come back into the race if she's able to.
She's back on her feet. That was an unfortunate clip of wheels in the middle of the bunch and neutralisation. The yellow flag, there it is, from the Commissar. They have 5 laps to come back in.
That's
Here's
one.
The crash again.
So where is she? Right towards the front, just gets a bit squeezed and pushed up the track. And unfortunately for Yasmin Leshti from Switzerland, nowhere to go, went over the top.
She did a good job of holding it up, though.
Cameron Meyer about to bring her back into the race. So she's not obligated to get back and as soon as she can, but they will only give her the 5 laps total. I'm sure she'll have to come back in next time around.
And we saw disaster in the men's race where some of the riders did not make it back into the field on time after a crash. And so it is important, the timing. Cameron Meyer giving Evans a big push back onto the track. Hopefully she can drop in toward the front and look after herself after that crash, because that is tough. 2 more laps of neutralisation. So no matter when the rider comes back in, it is still 5 laps of neutralisation before they start again. So they'll come around, get the thumbs up. Here we go. And that's good. It gives the peloton a chance to reform. It also gives the riders who have crashed a chance to not just rejoin the race, but get back in the peloton before they face another elimination. So they're back underway now.
And the false start with the gun, the second one gets them going. So we are back going again. They'll get the bell the next time around for another elimination lap. That crash, unfortunately, no fault of Nia Evans. She was just stuck right in the middle, the thick of it. And there was a lot of pushing and shoving, and she was the end result of those pushes and shoves.
It's a good highlight that sometimes even good position, because she was sitting in third wheel, can be a bit precarious. Ali Wollaston needs to move around the outside. She's spending a lot of energy. She is getting saved each lap when she does this, but it is costing her quite a lot of energy. Once again, she'll be safe. But
Petra Sepchikova from Czechia is the next rider to go. Wollaston, she did this in the outright elimination race on the first night. She was at the back quite a bit, and it looked like maybe she was struggling after the team pursuit races, but she wasn't. She was absolutely flying. So don't read too much into Wollaston hovering at the back of the peloton so often. Next elimination lap now, Kachihara from Japan. Katie Archibald could be in a little bit of danger here. She has to force her way out to give herself some room to accelerate. So both her and Kachihara okay. A little bit of a scream in the middle of the peloton then I did hear.
Uchino, rider 229 from Japan, is out. She's been close to elimination on a number of laps. I think that she's been lucky to get this far. But Archibald and Wollaston, our 2 leaders, and Valente, the 3 favourites for this race, all sitting quite up the back.
Nia Evans in a bit of danger now. She's in the danger zone right at the very back. Lee on the inside in the red colours, but Nia Evans, ooh, that was really tight. Maybe down the bottom.
Looked
Wait
like
for
Maria
confirmation.
Martins from Portugal might have been close. Let's see.
Hong Kong Lee it is.
And she was right down the bottom. Another bell.
Leshti from Switzerland.
Gee, she did a good job to not fall when Evans went down, but she certainly got hindered and would have been a bit of a jarring on her back. You can see that she's starting to struggle.
Big effort to try and keep herself in this elimination race, and I think she might have just done so.
There you go, Maria Martins is out. She's been riding quite low in the bunch the whole time, but very often has come close to being eliminated as the top riders accelerate. The Canadian, Maggie Coles-Lister, she is going to have to move up around the outside.
Acceleration from Maggie now for Canada. She's out of danger. Leshti still in a bit of trouble there from Switzerland, and you can see just the drop of the head that was such a big effort the previous lap that this time was going to be a little bit too much.
She's done. Self-selected. Leshti is now out. We're down to 8 riders.
Maggie Coles-Lister is at last position.
9 riders.
Jennifer Valente, the world champion, second last from the back. And she moves her way up around the outside. Will she drag Coles-Lister with her? Yes, indeed. Valente is in danger now. So Olivia, the next one to go.
Lithuania is now eliminated. We're down to 8 riders. Coles-Lister still sitting in that back position, but world champion Valente just in front of her. Katie Archibald holding a better position at the front now. The Aussie Georgia Baker has been consistently up the front. Coles-Lister will need to get on the move because Valente and Wollaston not wanting to be caught out. Can Baker get out of this box that she's just been put in? She's
Look over the shoulder.
Freedom to do so.
Look over the shoulder there from Georgia Baker. She will survive. And it might have been Coles-Lister at the very top. Nia Evans was pretty close as well. So Nia Evans it was that is out. She was down the bottom of the track. So Coles-Lister, once again, putting in a big effort just at the very end to keep herself in the race.
As the fatigue is setting in, they're starting to ride higher on the track. Nobody wants to set quite as much pace. They're accelerating in the last half lap leading into the elimination, but not setting the pace high for the entire lap as they have been.
Wollaston, the New Zealander, high up around the outside, comfortably again. And Kachihara, the Asian Continental Champion, is the next one to go. 6 riders remain. Wollaston, Coles-Lister, Valente, and Georgia Baker, Katie Archibald, and Jiali Liu from China. The red colours down the bottom, and the next elimination lap is upon us. Dangerous position right down the very bottom with not much speed, and that's why Georgia Baker was comfortably able to go up around the outside, and now the rider from China really in a bit of trouble, and you can just see labouring down the back straight. So this is an easy one to pick as we see Jiali Liu, the next one to go out.
Well, we will see some movement in the top because Wollaston and Archibald are still in there, but coming in, Lara Gillespie was in third, the Irish rider. She was eliminated quite early. Jennifer Valente, she was sitting in fourth. She will move up to third after this. There'll be some good movements for the Australian too, for Baker and the Canadian Coles-Lister.
High on the track as they come into this elimination lap. First one to dive down was Coles-Lister from Canada, so she'll stay in the race, but Ali Wollaston in a bit of trouble. Can she get over the top of Katie Archibald? 2 of the big pre-race favourites, first and second overall. One of them may be going out, or is it Georgia Baker? Georgia Baker it is, the Australian. So the 2 top-placed riders in Wollaston and Archibald do survive, and it was at the expense of Georgia Baker from Australia.
That was a tight one. It looked from here like Archibald was out, but she's not getting herself stuck in that position again. 4 riders left, but Coles Lister has self-eliminated essentially here. She's had enough. She's off the back now.
And good that all 3 riders out in front realised that Coles Lister had given up and they weren't sprinting for no reason. So that'll give them all just that little bit of respite.
Well, she did a good job to keep herself out of trouble for the last one, but it cost her a lot of energy. She'll go out with 4th. These are our 3 top-ranked riders coming in. The Olympic champion, the world champion, the European champion from last year. Oh, a bit of aggression, bit of a shoulder barge from Katie Archibald to Valente.
And it's Valente that dives down. Wollaston in a really good position there. She was in a little bit of danger at the bell in 3rd position, but picked the gap, went through, and she will hold on, and it may be Archibald that will go, and it will be Katie Archibald. So for Ali Wollaston, she'll be very happy to see that Katie Archibald is out of the race. Now we're down to 2. The world champion against the New Zealander, Jennifer Valente from the United States of America, up against Ali Wollaston. The final lap now, final elimination. And Wollaston, she's already won an elimination this weekend. We're into the final lap now, and Wollaston dives down the track. It's a really short sprint, this one. Wollaston with the best legs at the end of the women's elimination in the Omnium, and she will pick up the maximum of 40 points and extend her overall lead with only the points race still to come. Fantastic riding there from Ali Wollaston ahead of Jennifer Valente and Katie Archibald.
Absolute class from Wollaston. She's just been so comfortable. We were slightly critical of her style, so close to the back, so close to elimination so often, not because it necessarily showed fatigue, because we've seen a ride like that, but just because of the energy that it might cost her to do that. She came in on equal points with Katie Archibald into this second round. She will go into the final round as the leader ahead of Archibald. Valente is now sitting in 3rd. Australian Georgia Baker up in 4th now. There's been a fair bit of movement because we had some early exits from some of the higher ranked riders, but that only plays into the advantage of Wollaston and Archibald now, who are really quite clear of then Valente back, who is almost the best of the rest. Remembering that in the points race, every point they earn counts, and so it's still wide open.
Fantastic elimination race, and look at that, very close call as Archibald wanted to go down the track and Valente said, I own this space, thank you very much.
Wollaston just so comfortable. The acceleration, Valente cannot match it, sits up. They both just get to the finish. Archibald has been using her shoulders and her hips a bit to make sure she's getting the right position. She's got really good skills to be able to do it. So there's the standings. 3 races out of 4. Wollaston on top, Archibald in 2nd. Valente is now moved up to 3rd. On paper, they were certainly the 3 that we would highlight most significantly from Omnium results from the last years. But Wollaston, I think, has taken another step up again. And instead of being a close, she's now leading the pack.
Race number 2 in the men's sprint finals. Matthew Richardson against Kaya Ota. Richardson one up in the best of 3. Kaya must get this win to force a deciding race. And it was a really comfortable performance for Matthew Richardson. He would have had so much confidence from that. He'll be hoping he only has one more race to go to finish off this fantastic weekend here at the Track Nations Cup. Kaya Ota, former rower, what can he do to upset the champ?
Richardson's so convincing, so confident. He leads them away. Ota won quite convincingly against Matthew Glaetzer. One of the victories from the back. He ducked around Glaetzer on the home straight. One of the victories, he led from early on and just was so strong. He can't ride with the same tactics against Richardson though. Richardson comes in not only as the fastest qualifier, but certainly the most comfortable and confident sprinter in this competition.
Very slow speed as they come around to complete the first lap. 3 laps in total, 750 metres for the sprint competition. Now just starting to get a little bit more speed. Richardson happy to take control in the first position. Ota stalking high on the banking, both of the riders. Down the back straight, they'll get the bell as they come around, and now move from Kaya Ota, really pushing. Richardson trying to shut him down, but Kaya Ota from Japan wants to get to the bell first. He needs this win to force a deciding race, and he's doing a really good job of it down the back straight. But here comes Matthew Richardson. Richardson up onto the back wheel of Kaya Ota, down the finishing straight. Can he get there? No, he cannot. There will be a deciding race between these two. Wow, Kaya Ota, he looked comfortably defeated in the first race, but he has come back. He has some fight, this young man from Japan.
That was a sensational ride from the Japanese. Kaya Ota, he was sensational in the keirin, and that was a very impressive ride. Richardson does appear to just be faster, but it's not all about that. He hesitated, and Ota caught him in the exact moment of hesitation. We'll watch that back on the replay. Richardson, he looks left, Ota goes right, and that is the moment, the race-winning moment. Ota comes over the top. Richardson fought hard to come back over the top. He was gaining ground, but not enough time.
That was great. Fantastic racing from both of these riders. If you just went back to the first race between the two, you would have thought Matthew Richardson had it in spades, but Kaya Ota with some courage and some speed.
And a moment's hesitation from Richardson, and you can see that that moment meant a lot more than whether either of them had the speed or not, because that was the deciding factor. Now we're going to see the keirin finals for the women. The 7th to 12th will go first. We've got an young Australian in there. Matilda Groh on paper is the most accomplished rider. She has had a number of international podiums at World Championships and European Championships in this event. The other 5 have far less experience, and so it is a little bit open as to the tactics that might be used.
That's Alessia McCaig riding for Australia. Matilda Groh on the new bicycle developed for the Paris Olympic Games. When you look towards the back of that, they have the super wide forks. We're seeing a lot of that now, but the double seat tube holding up the saddle, which is right at the very, very back of the bike, an unusual position for the seat post, but having a split seat post is also quite new. New regulations for bikes have allowed that to happen. As the motorcycle comes around, they must remain in for the first lap. And Miriam Fecci from Italy will go onto the back of the motorcycle ahead of Alessia McCaig. Then it's Matilda Groh. 2 Belgian riders in this race, Julia Nicolales from Belgium. Marta Bayona from Colombia will separate the 2 Belgian riders, with Nikki de Grendele at the back of the group.
Well, they know that position is everything for the women. 3rd is the plum position in terms of statistically winning. The riders aren't allowed to change the position that they draw. They used to draw cards, now they do it on a computer. They just touch the computer screen and it turns the card over to show what number they'll line up on the track. When the moto leaves with 3 laps to go, then you can change your position. And given that it's a lot harder to win statistically from 5th and 6th wheel, that is often the time where we see a fair bit of movement from the back of the bunch. And that's why McCaig is dropping off that front wheel and looking over her shoulder, because she's trying to anticipate the movement that will come from behind. Groh in the best position and the most experienced out there, also looking over her shoulder.
Bike has come off. Matilda Groh the first to pounce. This is the race for 7th to 12th. We'll see the race for gold after this, and it's Matilda Groh the first to move. Fecci from Italy in 2nd position. And then it's Julie Nicolais from Belgium, hung out to dry, high on the outside. And here's Bayona, the next one to go. So it's been a long way from when the bike came off for Matilda Groh. 1 more lap to go. It's a real fight for the French lady to try and hold on, as Bayona is trying to fight round the outside. De Grendele from Belgium now 3 wide with Fecci on the inside, but this has been a really strong fight there for Matilda Groh from France. So she holds on to finish 7th in the keirin competition. De Grendele in 8th, Bayona 9th, Alessia McCaig, the youngster from Bendigo in Australia, comes across for 10th place.
Well, Gros was third in the women's sprint. Elise Andrews unable to complete the bronze medal ride-off after she had an accident in an earlier round. But the French lady would have been hoping to get into the final for 1 to 6. She's trying to qualify some individual spots for the Olympic Games for her country. She's strong and she is able to really keep that acceleration high. There wasn't really any competition in the end.
7th to Mathilde Gros, former sprint world champion. Nikki de Glendler in 8th, Bayona 9th, and then McCaig, Fetchy and Nicolais finishing it off for Belgium. On to the final now, the race for the gold medal. Lauriane Genet, Sophie Capewell, Emma Finucane, Katie Marchant, 3 riders from Great Britain, Leah Friedrich, and also Mina Sato from Japan. Sato, the first rider up onto the track.
And she is our newcomer. She was sensational in the sprint competition, but we haven't seen a lot of her, and she's certainly improving in every ride. But we've got the real pedigree in this group. The 23 and 24, 2023-24 European champion in Leah Friedrich, third at the World Championships. Disappointed after the team sprint. She's on a bit of a mission, but 3 Brits, Scott, heavily loaded from Great Britain.
Katie Marchant in the green colours with the Union Jack flag. Leah Friedrich from Germany. And 2 riders in Great Britain in the Great Britain jersey. This is Lauriane Genet from France. Mina Sato, from Canada, French-Canadian though. And Sophie Capewell down the bottom. Emma Finucane is further up the track, and she's the world sprint champion, Finucane. She got knocked out by Mina Sato in those in the quarterfinals of the sprint competition here.
Unexpected, but impressive.
Absolutely. Sophie Capewell goes onto the back of the bike. Sato. Then it's Genet, Finucane, Friedrich and Marchant in 6th position in the green colours. Race for gold, women's keirin.
And while the pace is set by the Derny out the front, this is a bit of a mental game. They're just all preparing for what's going to happen when they get 3 laps to go. 5 laps to go now, so still 2 laps left. We start to see these gaps opening up where the riders are anticipating the moves that are coming from the back.
Finucane just giving herself a little bit of room. A bit nervous perhaps about the 2 riders behind in Friedrich and Marchant. So not looking to get surprised. Another lap before the bike comes off the track, and now the 3 riders on front also starting to give themselves just that little bit of room. Leah Friedrich deciding to move up around the outside of Finucane. They both go past Genet. They are not allowed to pass the motorcycle before it comes off. It now comes off the track. Then it's 3 abreast around the first bend, and a real fight to get into that first position.
Well, Genet's 6th back, but she was 3rd at the Olympic Games from a poor position. But Friedrich, she has just come off a fresh win ahead of Finucane at the European Championships. She's known to ride from the front, and she says, come and try and get around me, and she's riding that confidently again.
Sato now comes towards the front of the group here, and it's Sato that will lead to the bell. She goes over the top of Finucane. Marchant trying to fight round the outside. Finucane is still in the slipstream of Mina Sato, but the Japanese rider, she's been a revelation this weekend. She is the Asian Continental keirin champion, and she wins here tonight in Adelaide as well. Katie Marchant closed the gap significantly in the last couple of metres, but Mina Sato holds on to win gold in the women's keirin.
What a sensational ride, and she absolutely put a spanner in the works of the plans of Leah Friedrich. Mina Sato has taken some big wins, some big victories here at the Nations Cup. She knocked Finucane out of the world champion out of the sprint rounds. She now takes the win in the keirin. Absent of Sato, Friedrich was leading very well. She was controlling it exceptionally well. She hasn't raced at this level against Sato. She didn't really know what was coming. We have just seen the emergence of a really big talent in an Olympic year coming into this Track Nations Cup. What an exciting rider.
Sato, Marchant, and Lauriane Genet from Canada, third place to her. So she'll be pleased with that performance as well. Looking to qualify individual points towards the Olympic Games. And a really solid ride there for Amina. Close in the end, but doesn't matter how close it is as long as you're first to the line.
No, indeed. And Genet, she was back in 6th, but we have seen her perform at such an exceptional level, no matter what position she's drawn in the keirin. So she's quite a versatile rider in her style, and she's done really well there. Look at that Sato. Close, but not close. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say comfortable, super comfortable, but Sato came in as a bit of a relative unknown. She's ruffled some feathers, and people will certainly be paying attention now. And there's the final classification.
Sato from Japan, second in the sprint, and now picking up gold here in the keirin. Reminder that the current keirin world champion in Elise Andrews from New Zealand, unfortunately crashing in the sprints and slight fracture to the collarbone, so unable to complete the competition here. So wish her all the very best.
Well, a break is a break, so I hope that she's able to do a little bit of time on the trainer.
The decider for the men's sprint competition as Matthew Richardson and Kaya Ota come up onto the track one more time. Winner takes all now. One race apiece in the best of 3 competition. And I can see the pumping of the chest for Kaya Ota, I can see Matthew Richardson from my position really inhaling, big deep breaths. You can see the chest still pumping, the heart rate is still quite high. The end of a very long competition here, 3 days, so many battles on these boards, one more still to come.
Such a sensational overhead shot that is of the riders too, under the spotlight on the start line. Richardson, Ota, playing the game. You can see how slowly they're going, that Ota has to bounce the bike to ensure that he doesn't slide down. He wouldn't be the first to slide down this velodrome, I'll tell you that. There's a few splinters that have happened. But you do have a commissaire you can see just wandering around the inside there, because they have to go faster than walking pace. There is a predetermined walking pace, I might add. They can't take it too slow or too fast. There are commissaires dotted around the entire velodrome, so they hand over to another.
I would suggest that the gate on the second commissaire is slightly quicker than we saw from our female commissaire.
Well, they have picked up the pace, but only ever so slightly. Moving up the track, Richardson looking over his shoulder. Ota, calm, collected, composing himself for the fight ahead.
This is the peak of nervousness when you're both have a race win. It comes down to this final battle. Again, Kaya Ota putting the back pedal brake to best use. Of course, no brakes on these fixed gear track bikes.
Pushing backward on the pedal is how you get the brake. A considered acceleration from Richardson, trying to get some pace, but back up the top. Ota still giving distance.
This is perhaps the slowest race we have seen after one lap of completion, and nervously we see Matthew Richardson trying to come to a stop to try and force Kaya Ota to go into first position, but he's given himself enough room, Kaya, that he has a little bit of room to manoeuvre, and Matthew Richardson realising he's not going to be able to change positions. He must now lead out. It's too close to the final lap, so Matthew Richardson, both riders now up and out of the saddle as they start to accelerate into the final lap here. Do or die. Whoever gets to the line first wins the gold medal here in the men's sprint, and it's Richardson that leads into the final lap. A big gap back to Kaya Ota. Wow, that's a huge margin to overcome. Richardson has the power, but Ota has the speed as they come in to the final straight. And Kaya Ota throws the arm up a little bit in disgust, but he got to the line first and claims gold.
Whew. What a win by the Japanese rider. Coming in, Richardson looked to be the fastest rider out there, but Ota, he's such a smart bike rider. He's a fast bike rider.
That was close.
It was also quite a traditional sprint race. A lot of cat and mouse, a lot of really looking at the other over the shoulders, playing the patient game.
Let's have another look at this, because it was such a big gap that Kaya Ota allowed himself to the back wheel of Matthew Richardson, but the speed, the acceleration, the closing speed for Kaya Ota, and just as Richardson flicked up, he would have been relegated anyway, I must say, but it did make it spectacular, and Kaya Ota was still able to get to the line first.
But Richardson did, oh, look at that. That doesn't look tight in terms of front wheels, but it certainly looks tight in front of how close Ota and Richardson are to each other. Richardson did not get out of his seat to have a big acceleration when he went. He used a seated acceleration, and while he opened up a big gap, he certainly wasn't able to build momentum in the same way that Ota was.
Well, we saw a fantastic men's Madison that was dominated by New Zealand, and we have our two superstars to have a chat with right now.
Campbell, you attacked from the front. Was that the plan from the get-go?
Maybe to wait a little bit longer, but yeah, we kind of saw an opportunity and yeah, went out there, took it. It's always better to be on the front foot rather than chasing. So yeah, we kind of put a bit of the pressure down, and eventually a few of the other teams responded. But yeah, it was nice to kind of race from the front and yeah, keep pushing.
And Aaron, did you two feel in control at all, or was the latter half that you really put your stamp on the race?
Yeah, well, we wanted to be in contention from the start and just like see how, I know it's a little bit cliche, but see how it sort of plays out a little bit and not show all our cards too early, because 200 laps can take quite a long time. So it was a case of just, getting points on the board, making sure we're in contention, and then we could, get stuck into our work, and it was good that it obviously paid off.
Thank you.
It really was a dominant performance by Campbell Stewart and Aaron Gate. Good battle with them and the German team, but in the end, just too strong. Had the speed, had the power, and almost taking 2 laps on the field just to really seal the deal.
They weren't content with just winning on points. They wanted to really make sure people knew that they meant business. And so they did. Wollaston is putting on a similar show in the women's Omnium. We'll see the final for that soon. There's Wood and Tarling. Tarling, the taller lad. Campbell Stewart and Aaron Gate. Aaron Gate has the mullet, if we can call it that.
Very well credentialed.
A very well credentialed mullet.
No, I was just going to say the top 3 teams, very well credentialed. Very strong. And a mix of ages. When you look at Josh Tarling versus Roger Kluger in particular. Kluger in his late 30s, Tarling still looking to get into his 20s. And it is surprising to see how much success is coming from riders that are in their teens, particularly on the road in the World Tour. It used to take them several years to get up to full speed and strength, but nowadays they're coming straight out of the under-19s and getting big wins on the World Tour, as we've seen with Tarling. So the presentation now for the men's Madison, and Brett Aitken, OAM, will be doing the presentations of medals. Olympic Madison gold medalist in 2000, so quite fitting to have him present the medals here. Great Britain picking up the bronze. Ollie Wood on the right. Josh Tarling, the youngster, the taller of the two. Absolute superstar of the future, Tarling.
Well, he said to you earlier, don't be too hard on my Madison riding in the commentary.
I'm quite chuffed with how well he's riding, that's for sure. The European champions riding for Germany, Roger Kluger and Theo Reinhardt, come away with the silver medal. We had that mechanical mishap, so a change of wheels for Roger Kluger, so out of the race slightly. He also had a crash in the Omnium the other day. You can see some of the damage that he was sporting from that.
He did very well. The team did very well to be able to hold the fort while Kluger was changing his wheel. So they've done well. They've got a lot of history and a lot of credentials, that pairing.
And it's New Zealand that take out the gold medal. Aaron Gates and Campbell Stewart. About as dominant a performance as you can put on in a Madison at this level. The UCI Track Nations Cup here in Adelaide. Medalists at the World Championships last year and now starting this season in fine form. And it's a great confidence booster for them with 2 more Nations Cups to come. But the Madison at the Olympic Games certainly within their sights as well.
It's a nice way to end what's been a successful Australian summer for them. The Oceanias are coming up for Australia and New Zealand. They may be wearing the Oceania champions jerseys, similar to what Kluger and Reinhardt are wearing for the European champions.
It will be interesting to see with all of these riders what races they do next. Campbell Stewart rides for the Jaco Alula professional team, and whether he's required to go to Europe now and not do more Nations Cups or get onto the road, or whether they do want to get some more points and some more Madison experience in particular in the Oceanias or the next Nations Cups in Hong Kong and Milton, Canada. Fans are fanning inside the velodrome here. Very hot, sticky conditions. Brilliant for the cyclists. A little bit uncomfortable for them perhaps, but it is fast conditions.
Fast track's a good track. We've got one race left this evening. In fact, in the whole Nations Cup program, it's been a sensational couple of days. We've got the women's omnium, the 4th event.
Been an action-packed program, hasn't it, over 3 days, with all of the Olympic disciplines, plus the men's and women's eliminations as the extra event that they've had within the program. And some of the other Nations Cups, they will have individual pursuit, 1,000-metre time trial, 500-metre time trial, which will, from next year, be a 1,000-metre time trial for the women as well, not just a 500. And those events will come out in the other Nations Cup scratch race, points race as well. Final preparation for the last riders to come onto the track. Women's Omnium points race. And the 3 disciplines they've had so far, while they're racing for 40 points for first, 38 for second, 36 for third, and so on. All of those points that they have for their overall classification now, that's what they start with in this final event. So the final discipline of the Omnium points race, they start with those points, and Ali Wollaston sits on 116. Katie Archibald 112, so really tight between those 2 top contenders. Then a little bit of a gap to Jenny Valente. She's on 90, 78 points. Georgia Baker from Australia. Also on 78 is Jiali Liu from China.
Well, the biggest difference in the points race is that every point you score now gets added onto your point tally. And so Wollaston will come in defending her position. It'll be quite a hot competition between Wollaston and Archibald, I imagine, in the early sprints. Valente could do with taking a lap. She's 22 points behind second place. That will be hard to make up purely on sprints alone. So it is still quite open, but it isn't uncommon. We saw it last night in the men's race for the top 3 going into the points race to also be the top 3 on the other side. And not even so much because of the points, but because after 3 events, they've shown their form. And the riders that are strong and in form often emerge.
There's our leader, Ali Wollaston, 116 points. So she's at the top of the track as the #1 seeded rider coming into this final race for the women's Omnium. Bottom of the track will be Katie Archibald. There's Katie. world champ Jen Valente from the USA. And we can look down the field a little bit to some of the riders that might be seemingly out of contention, but willing to go on the attack to try and gain a lap. Get the 20 points for the lap gain. They might be able to put themselves right back up in the hunt for the medals. Maybe Nia Evans, who sits in 8th place. She's on 70 points. She gets 1 lap gain. She'll be up there with Jen Valente on 90 in the bronze medal position. So keep an eye out for a rider like that. Lara Gillespie from Ireland in 10th place. She's on 64. She lost out a little bit in the elimination. She was in great contention until then.
And Fidanza is another one. Riders that looked strong in the first 2 events, but then had a bit of a misstep in the elimination, which can happen. And Gillespie in particular, she went in 3rd spot. She got out very early and her position dived down.
Anita Stenberg from Norway, another one. She's down in 15th place, only 45 points. She was the 2nd rider out in the elimination. So she is the European champion. She has credentials in this event, so she needs to do something to just salvage anything she can from this event.
Well, it'll be very difficult for her to get anywhere near the podium because she is only on 45 points, but she can certainly move her way up. Nia Evans is probably the one that is the most dangerous to move up onto the podium. But Australian Georgia Baker moved up a lot in that last event, so let's see where she can find herself.
80 laps of the track to finish off the competition here in Adelaide. The Tissot UCI Track Nations Cup, 3 days of competition. It is the first of 3 Track Nations Cups. Hong Kong is the next one next month. And then in April, they wrap things up in Milton in Canada, just outside of Toronto. And after that is when they calculate all of the points from the Continental Championships, from the Category 1 events, from the Nations Cups and from the World Championships last year. And then the quotas for the Olympic Games are given out to the nations. So very important to finish these Nations Cups off well to make sure that they can get their positions at the Olympic Games. That's the challenge for Stenberg. She's the European champion, so she may have done enough already. But riders like that don't have a team pursuit squad that'll qualify in the top 10 teams, they're the countries that really need to do well in these individual eliminations and omniums.
A fairly conservative start to the points race. Points race at the end of an omnium, they're a different beast to a standalone points race. So we don't expect them to go out all guns blazing in this first couple of laps. Wollaston hasn't really shown any vulnerability. Archibald, she did, I think, in that elimination. She was almost eliminated a few times, definitely prematurely. But she's not afraid to hold her own in the middle of a bunch. She's got exceptionally good skills, and that does put her a step above a lot of the riders just in terms of managing to find her way through the bunch.
Georgia Baker swings up, then Lee from Hong Kong. Kachihara from Japan now up and out of the way, as is Valente. Very short turns of pace, nobody wanting to stay on the front of the peloton, pushing into the wind, wasting energy. Gillespie from Ireland now. Sprint every 10 laps, 73 laps now, so they're not too far away from the first of the sprints. Georgia Baker sits in 4th place overall, but a long way down towards the back of the group here. She may not be in a good position in terms of going for points. That's why she's starting to move up on the inside. Out in front, Gillespie drags everybody down towards the bottom of the track. There she is, Georgia Baker. 2nd place in the Madison, along with Alex Manley in yesterday's program. About a little bit too far back to go for this sprint. As we look at the front, it's Gillespie that leads the way. Then it's Stenberg in the European champions colours. Katie Archibald is boxed in on the inside. She's looking for a gap to try and move out and go around. Now it's opened up a little bit, but it's a fight between Gillespie and Stenberg. And I think Gillespie may have just held on for that. Yes, she has. So Lara Gillespie from Ireland gets the 5 points, first of the 5-pointers on offer from Anita Stenberg from Norway. Archibald, she gets 2 points for 3rd. And Yasmin Leshki from Switzerland with 1 point, fourth place.
Well, Leshti showed what incredible skills she has when Evans went down in the elimination. Katie Archibald is just going to chip away at points. That was really well done by her to get a couple of points. Lara Gillespie, we talked about it at the beginning of this points race. A mistake in the elimination saw her drop from third all the way down. So we know she's got good legs. I think we can see a very motivated Gillespie because she is one of the riders who will be really looking to qualify herself individually because the Irish team is not looking to get that spot in the team's pursuit. So a bit more pressure on her.
Moment of pause, there's Gillespie coming through. And to clarify, through all of these events, the top 10 team pursuit nations qualify 4 riders for their team pursuit, but automatically get a position in the Madison and also in the Omnium at the Olympic Games. Then they look to these individual Nations Cup events for the next lot of individuals, nations that have not qualified through the top 10 team pursuits. So it is really important for a rider like Gillespie, Stenberg also, Switzerland, some of the other countries that don't have strong team pursuit squads, they need to do well in these Omniums.
Well, Georgia Baker performed very well in the Madison last night. They got second riding with Alex Manley. She's a good points race rider. She didn't have the strongest start to the Omnium, but she has been improving with each round. A very strong elimination. She's looking quite comfortable, positioning herself very well to put herself in the mix. Fidanza, the Italian rider who we thought may really come into the mix today, she's sitting quite a ways back. Now, she was eliminated quite early in the last round in the elimination, and she will need to certainly, there she is, 2-2-1 from Italy. She would certainly need to be quite aggressive in this points race if she wants to move up, and that's what we said also about Gillespie, and that's what she did in that first sprint.
62 laps to go. Next intermediate sprint coming up, and it's Valente, the world champion from the United States. Gillespie again in second position, keeping herself towards the front, but she may get boxed in as more riders come up around the outside. Maggie Coles-Lister from Canada will hear the bell first as she comes through. Look over the shoulder to see who's on the wheel. She'll see the world champion there. She'll know she needs to kick pretty hard down the back straight to hold her off. And we can see a few more flyers coming, and right up around the outside is Ali Wollaston. She'll get a good run down the finishing straight here. It might be a little bit too late. No, very tight between Wollaston and Valente.
Well, Valente will take the win there. Wollaston in second, Chino in third, Balista coming across in fourth, the rider from Lithuania. Second sprint of 8. Wollaston very high and very far back, but she managed to make it to almost get those points. But here she has kept going after that sprint. Fidanza, she's now showing that aggression we knew. Wollaston she swung up at a bad moment there. She was trying to come across, but she's now abandoned. Fidanza finds herself solo off the front and not a big reaction en masse from the peloton. This is what the Italian needs to move up, but she is a fair way down on points. She's down on 45 points. Even if she gains 20, that only takes her, it doesn't even take her back into the top 10. So realistically, the bunch doesn't have a lot of impetus to chase.
56 laps to go. One rider from Italy, Fidanza, is off the front. A little bit of pace still with the peloton. There might have been a bit of a chance for her had they eased up, knowing that she's not a danger for the overall. Now they swing up down the back straight. Katie Archibald right at the very front at the top of the fence. And now she has perhaps more of a chance if she can keep the pace on, Fidanza. Not giving me a lot of confidence with her. The impetus seems to have gone off a little bit from Fidanza. There is a bit of a chase coming across. Kajihara from Japan.
I applaud her effort, but she's now abandoned the attempt.
Good move here, though, from Georgia Baker. So she's gone across with this initial attack. And that may cause a bit of a scramble from Wollaston, Archibald, Valente, who are first, second and third overall.
Valente, the first of those names to react and go across. And this will force the peloton to pay attention when Valente, with the world champion stripe, sitting in third going into this event. When she moves, Wollaston and Archibald have to move as well.
So all back together after a little bit of a scramble, and they will have the bell next time around. 51 laps to go. Not a lot of confidence coming to this bell. Maria Martins leads down the back straight, Stenberg, but here comes Archibald up around the outside. So Katie Archibald, this will close up the overall standings. So that will put her right to the very top, tied with Ali Wollaston. So both those riders on 119 points. So good sprint there for Archibald.
Archibald looked a little like she was carrying a little bit more fatigue than Wollaston coming in, but she's a very savvy rider. She's just been sitting back and using her energy really really wisely to take top points.
Dominant show of speed and strength there from Katie Archibald. So 48 laps to go, and we have two riders tied, 119 points apiece. Ali Wollaston and Katie Archibald. 95 points is Jennifer Valente, and Georgia Baker still sits in fourth place, tied on 78 points with Jiali Liu from China.
Pace is off up the top of the track. Nobody wanting to take responsibility. Just in this moment, Valente is sitting down toward the back. She needs to be careful not to get in danger. Falls happen at the back, gaps open.
We'll see Wollaston right at the very back as well, just starting to move up also. Just didn't want to be back there for too long. There's Valente, the world champ.
Wollaston's moved up. She's mid-pack and down the bottom. Archibald, our tied leader, but still not a lot of impetus from the peloton. Lara Gillespie, she opened up this points race with top points. She wants them to ride a bit faster, but nobody's particularly keen to follow on with her.
High on the track for Ali Wollaston, drifting back towards the rear of the field once more. She's already been back there and then had to put in the effort to get back to the front, but at this pace, not that difficult to regain position. They are really just cruising around the top of the track now, waiting for the next sprint. 44 laps to go. It'll be 43 in a moment. Yes, 43 laps to go, and they come around this time. So from the front to the back to the front again, and now diving high up on the track is Ali Wollaston. Seems to have the way of the peloton at the moment. Wants to ride wherever she can. And now we'll start to see a little bit more of movement. Just coming into the shot at the very top of the track, we'll see Katie Archibald. There she is, right at the very top, just trying to come up around the outside to make up some positions for this next sprint. Wollaston looked over the shoulder and saw her, and that's why she's moved straight to the fence to try and stop that run. So cheeky move from Wollaston, but Kajihara has come over the top and squeezed past Wollaston right on the fence. She'll lead into this sprint, and Archibald up around the outside as well. So this is a real fight between the top contenders here. Ali Wollaston dropped the shoulder into Archibald to move her, and Georgia Baker comes back in as well. So three of the top four riders here fighting for the points, and Wollaston will get the 5 points. So that'll put her clearly back up in front of Katie Archibald. And Georgia Baker also picking up some points there.
Archibald showing a bit of fatigue again there. She tried to come up the side onto the hip of Wollaston and box her in, but she didn't quite have the gas to do it. Really good positioning from the Australian Baker. She's edging closer to Valente, but still 15 points adrift. So she'll need to do a lot more, with a lot more consistency in the coming laps if she wants to change that.
Olga Zabelinskaya now on the attack. She's got a couple of riders directly behind her, though. There's Georgia Baker, Katie Archibald, 15 points. It's a reasonable gap, but there is enough points to come. But that also requires Jen Valente to not figure in any of these sprints, and that would be unlikely, you would think, from the world champ.
Yeah, possible, but not necessarily likely. And that's why you don't see so many changes at this point in an omnium, because other than unfortunate eliminations early on, I'll put Lara Gillespie into that pot, they've shown their form.
Nia Evans, I did mention at the start, might be a rider that'll be looking to try and gain a lap on the field and move herself up. She's on 70 points, sitting in 8th place, and now she finds herself about a quarter of a lap up on the field with 35 laps to go.
Well,
down far enough for the top riders to not pay too much attention, and perhaps she might go from 70 to 90. That'll put her into 4th.
if she gains a sprint along the way, that'll vault her onto the podium. So this is a move that needs to be taken seriously. Archibald is probably the least likely to chase, but Valente is the one that really needs to pay attention, and she's not.
Well, Katie Archibald was on the front just after Nia Evans attacked, and she decided, I won't chase that one. Swung up, got out of the way, so it didn't hinder.
She's not the race leader. And Wollaston isn't too fussed because she's far enough ahead that she doesn't need to worry. So this is really firmly into Valente's worry pot.
32 laps to go, and the peloton have eased up, and we pan back because we can see Nia Evans now coming into the same shot as the rear of the peloton. And if they stay with the pace off like this, it won't be long until we see Nia Evans gain a lap on the field. She has had the bell rung at 31 laps to go, so she will pick up the points now, regardless of whether she catches the peloton or not. So she will get the 25 points on offer, and she is right up into the bronze medal spot.
Yeah, that's a sensational ride. Valente has been absolutely caught napping.
Katie Archibald trying to pick up the scraps. It'll be 3 points still on offer. Acevedo from Mexico, and Stenberg from Norway, the European champion, trying to pick up the 1 point for 4th place. So another 3 points there for Archibald. That'll put her 1 point off the gold medal position. But Nia Evans should be up into equal 3rd position once they correct the points.
Yeah, they need to update those points, and there we have it. So she is now in equal 3rd with Valente, but Valente is nowhere to be seen. It was an opportunity for her to move forward and get some minor points there to ensure that they weren't, in fact, even, but she is sitting right back toward the very back of the bunch. Right at the back of picture there is Valente. I think she's struggling.
She's not filling me with confidence, the world champ, Jen Valente.
Well, certainly great ride from Evans.
Oh, certainly, yeah, take nothing away from Nia. We flagged it as a possibility. That's the tactic she might do, and she certainly has.
And she fell in the elimination as well, so it wasn't necessarily, she didn't lose the points in the elimination necessarily because she didn't have the legs for it or the form. It's pretty tough to come back in the same event from, especially one that moves that quickly, from a fall, but she's done a sensational job.
The veterinarian, Nia Evans, just put that on hold while she focuses on her cycling career.
Well, Britain have to choose who they're going to ride in the Omnium at the Olympic Games. Archibald or Evans, they're both putting in a pretty convincing ride.
Gillespie once more out of the saddle, just trying to stretch the peloton a little bit, test their legs, and just drops herself back into 5th position to fill the gap that she created. Coming around to get 23 laps to go now. Gillespie again finds herself on the front. She doesn't want to be there too often, so swings up and gets out of the way.
Wollaston sitting quite a way up the back, but she's got a 1 point lead to Archibald at the moment.
Baker now down to 5th place with that move from Nia Evans. Zabelinskaya is on the attack, been smothered this time by Jen Valente, and they will be coming around to get a sprint. So Valente now, she knows she needs to pick up some points. She can see where she stands on the big scoreboard here in the Adelaide Superdrome, and she will lead into this next sprint. Jiali Liu from China has gone over the top, so that will help Valente as well. She can get in the slipstream, see if she can come up around the outside and pick up the 5 points. She's fighting shoulder to shoulder. This is USA versus China, and USA come out on top. So 5 points to Valente, so that she now consolidates that position in bronze, with Nia Evans now with a 5-point deficit to overcome.
2 sprints left to go, and it's tight at the top.
124 points for Wollaston. Archibald, 123. So only 1 point separating those two.
And
15 points still on offer.
We certainly just learnt a lesson from Jennifer Valente, didn't we? She's looking tired, we said.
Yep. Oh, she fills me with confidence now.
Yes. Oh, how the tides turn. Martina Fidanza dipping off the front. She doesn't look like she meant to. Looks over the shoulder, swings up the track. The rest of the peloton follow her up there. They're fighting for the gold and silver here with Wollaston and Archibald. Valente and Evans fighting for the bronze medal.
Maggie Coles-Lister from Canada going on the attack. She has Anita Stenberg from Norway, followed her up. Gillespie goes through once more. Katie Archibald and Ali Wollaston very close to each other. Me and my shadow, Archibald and Wollaston. 15 points still on offer. 1 point separate first and second at the moment. The gap back to Valente, 23 points. So that's out of the question now. She's fighting for the bronze medal, Valente, with Nia Evans and Georgia Baker. I think she's got Georgia Baker as well. There's 20 points between them. So a real fight in two here for the gold medal and a fight for the bronze. Wollaston versus Archibald for gold and silver. Valente versus Evans for the bronze. And no dangerous riders have slipped off the front.
But because they are fighting for those spots for their nations at the Olympics, there are some battles going on lower down in the classification that are quite incidental to the overall ranking here today, but are very important to the riders themselves.
Uchino from Japan. She's in 12th position. Black colour swings up to go towards the back of this breakaway group. 13 laps to go. 2 more sprints on offer. 5 points maximum for the next one. Then it's double points for the final sprint. Wollaston will be happy to let this one go away and take all the points. She's got a 1 point advantage over Archibald. Valente the same. She's got 5 points over Evans for third. And now Nia Evans on the attack. So this may cause a reaction from Jen Valente.
Well, Evans not content to let the points go up the track, and they will come around for the bell, and so Evans is in a plumb position to pick some extra points up here.
She's going to go straight around the outside here. They'll start sprinting for this, but Nia Evans has been going for quite some time, but she's got the momentum. So Nia Evans is going to pick up the 5 points in the penultimate sprint. Jen Valente is back in the peloton, so that puts her on 100 points, equal third place.
Whoever crosses the line on the final lap, Evans or Valente, whoever is the first to cross the line will take the bronze medal. In first and second, it's 1 point differential. Third and fourth, same points. Fifth and sixth, same points.
Well, Katie Archibald needs to get at least 2 points in this final sprint. There are 4 riders in front. So for her to get the gold medal, Katie Archibald needs these 4 riders, or at least one of them, to get caught. Ali Wollaston, she'll be happy to leave them out there. They'll gobble up all the points on offer and she will win. Kachihara's come from behind. You can see her, the Asian Continental Omnium champion. So she has jumped across.
Well, you can see Archibald at the very back of that peloton. She's in the hurt locker. Valente, she needs to stalk Nia Evans.
Still 4 riders out in front. 4 positions left for the points. Double points on this final sprint with 6 laps to go. Kachihara has gone out on her own.
But Evans is still out the front there. There we can see her in shot. She will take this bronze medal if this continues, because she just needs to beat Valente over the line. She doesn't even need to get points. She will get points if this continues. 5 laps left to go. Evans is certainly fading, but she does have the advantage at the moment. Where is Valente? Katie Archibald
Has gone on the attack, but she's got Wollaston with her. So this is our leader on the track. Kajihara, as she comes around with 4 laps to go. Behind her is also from Japan, Uchino. Then it's the pairing from Portugal, Ania Evans. And Katie Archibald trying to come across, but she has Wollaston on the wheel. So these two here, 1 point the difference in the overall standings. But Wollaston has been cruising on the wheel of Archibald all the way since Katie attacked.
If Archibald gets points ahead of Wollaston, she'll beat her. If neither of them get points, then Wollaston will win.
And we see these are the two leaders out in front. They are chasing the 10 points, the 6 points. Archibald goes over the top of Nia Evans, and just behind Nia Evans is Jen Valente. There's Valente just coming into the shot at the back. She's trying to get herself in front of Nia Evans to pick up the bronze medal. That's all she has to do. Doesn't even require points, just has to cross the line in front of Nia Evans. And Wollaston has now been unleashed as she's come off the back wheel of Katie Archibald. Doesn't need to, but she can, so she will. And Ali Wollaston will pick up the 10 points for the final sprint and take out the overall title here in the women's omnium. And we look back to Valente and Nia Evans. Valente has crossed the line in front of Nia Evans, so she will take the bronze medal away from a courageous Evans who picked up the penultimate sprint. There's your omnium winner. Ali Wollaston does it. Silver goes to Katie Archibald, and Jen Valente from USA, the world champ, will get the bronze.
Such a dominant display by Wollaston at the finish there. She needed no more points to win, but she took more points. She took the win. She wins overall by 11 points, back between third and fourth. Look at that, same points. Evans, my goodness, finishing in fourth. Valente beat her over the line only by 1 spot. All she had to do was beat her over the line. But
she was desperate. Valente was desperate to get there.
What a brave ride from Nia Evans. Katie Archibald, she did her best to try and get one up over Wollaston. Wasn't able to do it, but fantastic ride for her for the silver medal.
Big attack there from Katie Archibald, but Ali Wollaston was right onto her. Spent a couple of laps on the back wheel, and as they got to that final bell lap, she just was unleashed to pick up the 10 points. Strong ride, though, still from Katie Archibald. We talk about that omnium position at the Olympic Games that's up for grabs. Nia Evans was throwing her hat in the ring with a strong performance, but Katie Archibald at the moment looks to be in that position. There's Jen Valente, the bronze medalist. And this was what we thought was going to be the race for first and second in this final sprint. Uchino and Kajihara, but then Wollaston came from behind, off the wheel, off the lead out, you could say, from Katie Archibald. Blasted past them all to pick up the 10 points. Kajihara got the 6 points, just ahead of Uchino. Then it was Archibald for the final points on offer. And Jen Valente to get across the line in front of Nia Evans. That claimed the bronze medal for her.
And there's our overall standing. Wollaston ahead of Archibald and Valente. Evans in fourth, equal points. Liu and Baker in fifth and sixth, also on equal points. And then if we go down to the next page, here are our minor finishes from 11th to 20th. Zappel Skyer actually put in quite a... Her points really didn't reflect the effort that she made and the number of times we announced that she was making some moves.
So we have the presentation coming up. Before we do that, we will hear from our women's keirin champion here, Mina Sato.
Mina, super day. How happy you to take that win?
優勝はどうですか？すごく昨日のスプリントもすごくいい結果が出てすごく嬉しかったし、今日の競輪でまさか優勝できると思わなかったので本当にすごい幸せな一日でした。
So yesterday in the sprint I also had good result, but I didn't think I would win today, so this was really the best day and the best result ever.
Thank you, Mina.
What a competition has been for Mina Sato. We'll see her on the dais in just a moment, claiming her gold medal to match the silver that she got in the sprint. So fantastic performances in both sprint disciplines. Katie Marchant, along with Matthew Richardson, just waiting for their presentations as well. The racing has been done and won here in Adelaide, but still the final presentations still to come. And we may allow Ali Wollaston, Katie Archibald and Jen Valente just a little bit of rest before they have to get themselves prepared to come up onto the podium. The sprinters, they look ready to go though. Not too far away from the final presentations. And good to see Matthew Richardson after, obviously, he was quite fatigued in the end. Kaya Ota got the better of him in that best-of-3 matchup. And normally you see Richo rolling around on the floor looking like he's about to expire, but he looks pretty comfortable there.
Well, we've seen a fair bit of that in the first 2 days of the Nation Cup. That's the beautiful Adelaide velodrome there. Looks like an armadillo. We don't have armadillos in Australia, but...
we have one, a big white one.
We have a big white one. And it is a lovely facility. We haven't had a Nations Cup or a World Cup here in 27 years. So it's wonderful to have it back here in Down Under.
Women's keirin presentations now. We just hear from Mina Sato via her interpreter. And now we'll get to see her presented with her gold medal. And Brett Aiken, OAM, Olympic gold medalist from Sydney 2000, doing the medal presentations again. Bronze medal from Canada is Lauriane Janae.
Bronze medalist at the Olympic Games in Tokyo. She's come back prepared and motivated for another Olympic campaign in Paris.
They have a lot of fun. Kelsey Mitchell and her in training. You see a lot of social media between these two. They really do seem to have a lot of enjoyment when they are training and preparing.
Well, she looks like she's enjoying that little kangaroo toy she's got. Katie Marchant in second, riding for Team Inspired. Maddie Glates, a double thumbs up in the background. I'm not sure that was to Katie, but good, there he is. Oh, he's giving us a bit of a mime show. Katie Marchant has been a really consistent performer in the sprints over the years. It's great to see her on good form.
And the gold medal to the Asian Continental Champion from Japan, Mina Sato. Talk about the koalas and the joeys, the kangaroos that they are being given. We know that I did see also on social media, Lauriane Janae did go to meet one for real. She was completely chuffed to go and pat a kangaroo and a wallaby.
Oh, you've just got to duck out the back here at sundown. Mina Sato, what a revelation she has been this week. New onto the top of the podium at the Nations Cup level. But she will be a name we are saying a whole lot more of because she has just been absolutely sensational.
What a way to start off an Olympic year. UCI Track Nations Cup here in Adelaide, round 1 of the 3-event series. Hong Kong and Milton in Canada, just outside of Toronto, still to come. But kicking off a fantastic year with the right momentum and trajectory towards Paris and the Olympic Games later this year. So Mina Sato, big name to look out for as we get further down towards the Olympic Games. And the winner of the men's sprint, that'll be the next presentation to come, but let's hear from our champion, Kaya Ota.
Kaya, Super Day, your first Track Nations Cup medal. How happy are you?
初めてのネーションズカップのメダルどうですか？
本当に嬉しくて実感はまだ湧かないんですけど、すごい強いライバルのおかげでここに立ててると思います。
So I'm really, really happy. I still don't even realize it, and I think I'm able to stand there thanks to this very strong rival I was able to fight with.
Thank you, Kaya.
Well, you can believe it. He has been sensational this weekend. 2 medals, gold and silver, from the sprint competitions. And those 2 Australians that were 2nd and 3rd in the sprint, Matthew Richardson and Matthew Glaetzer, very well credentialed. So certainly taken some big scalps here tonight. So Kaya Ota, the former rower, and you can imagine with the transition from one sport to the next, it is taking him a little bit of time to get up to full speed and potential, so he will continue to grow.
He really will, and he's quite an exciting sprinter because he's so incredibly respectful and humble off the bike, but on the bike he really transforms into quite a weapon. And I think that the Japanese have such a strong sprint stable that there's a lot of internal competition even to get the spot here, and that really lifts the boat.
Bronze medal in the men's sprint, Matthew Glaetzer on his home track. All the Australians based here for training, but he is from Adelaide, South Australia, so very much his home track as he gets presented the medal by Brett Aiken. Olympic gold medalist himself, Brett Aiken, in an endurance event, and Matthew Glaetzer hoping to do the same this year in Paris. Matthew Richardson, training partner, the two Matthews. Richardson with the silver medal. He does look like a former gymnast too, doesn't he?
I was going to say he looks like a professor with those glasses on.
A gym professor. Matthew Richardson, silver medal in the men's sprint. And Kaya Ota, always respectful, the Japanese riders. A gold medal to him. A little bit of disbelief we heard in that interview, but he can certainly believe it now. He's a man on a mission and going in the right direction.
Very humble, very respectful, and what an incredible performance it was for him.
Japan and Australia dominating the men's sprint. Former rower, former gymnast, and a former pole vaulter. All champion cyclists.
You don't have to guess which one was the pole vaulter based on the height in the presentation. Good to see their smile. It's been such a sensational 3 days of racing here. We've seen some really big names step up.
I'd like to see those two sports combined in pole vault and cycling. That would be an interesting one. What a combination.
Yeah, I'm not sure you'd sell that. Mina Sato has been one of my favourite to step up because I think that she's shocked quite a few just in how rapid her progression has been, including herself perhaps. But the Japanese team have been very successful. The New Zealand team have also been very successful here, and they have certainly pleased the crowd. A lot of New Zealand fans, friends, family and fans have been in the audience.
Kaya getting to legally take a koala home to Japan with him. Not a real one, of course.
No, it's stuffed.
And one more presentation to come. That will be for the women's omnium. So before we do that, let's hear from our champion in that event, Ali Wollaston, her third gold medal for this weekend.
Ali, super day. 3 from 3. How happy are you?
Yeah, really happy. I mean, I couldn't ask for much more. I'm just really proud of executing the day the way that I wanted and just being really consistent across the day. But yeah, no, I'm really just super happy, and yeah, honestly couldn't be happier with the weekend.
When Katie started to make a move at the end there, were you just following her intently?
Yeah, I just had to stick to her like glue. I mean, I couldn't let her get any more points on me. I think it was a really close run the whole time, and she's a phenomenal rider, and yeah, if I let her go, I think it would have been game over. So just had to stick to the wheel.
Thank you, Ali.
Start to the season for her, Kate Bates. Ali Wollaston is absolutely on fire.
Oh, she has just been sensational. She's achieved on the road the first winner of a Women's World Tour event this year with stage 1 of the Tour Down Under. Absolutely sensational. She then came and picked up her track bike, and what a revelation she's been here too. She's really stepped up a level. She's been well known and successful at international level for the last couple of years, but not quite at this level. This is just a whole nother step into a new league for her, where while she was trailing a little bit behind Valente and Archibald Evans in the past, they're now chasing her.
Brett Aitken once again coming up to present the medals for the final awards ceremony here at the UCI Track Nations Cup in Adelaide. It's the women's omnium, and the world champion Jennifer Valente from the United States of America comes away with the bronze medal. A desperate scramble at the very end to make sure that she claimed that bronze.
Yeah, she did well, and all she needed to do was beat Evans across the line, and she only beat her across the line by 1. So it was tight, but good to see the rainbows on the podium.
We've seen Katie Archibald on the podium so many times in recent years, and once again with the silver medal this time here in the women's omnium. She will play a massive role this season at the Olympic Games, the team pursuit, perhaps the Madison and the omnium as well. That's still to be decided, but they are, along with the New Zealanders, the Great Britain team, looking very good for the team pursuit. 3 gold medals this weekend, 3 days of racing and 3 gold medals. Wow, what an incredible start to the season for Ali Wollaston from New Zealand, winning gold here in the women's omnium.
Well, she deserves all the rewards she gets. The hunter has become the hunted. And she'll go into Paris with a big target on her back.
Absolutely. Wollaston stands on top. The final presentation here in Adelaide at the Track Nations Cup. Everyone will start thinking towards Hong Kong now next month. It's not too far away. I know the British endurance team are staying here in Australia. They're going to the Alpine region of Victoria to do a big training block on the road before heading up to Hong Kong. And then it all wraps up in Milton in Canada. That's in April, the final, the third and final Track Nations Cup. And the overall medal standings, it was New Zealand, 3 gold medals to Ali Wollaston. Also the men's Madison, they picked up 1 as well. So that made 4 gold medals with 1 bronze. So 5 in total. Great Britain, 3 gold to them, 2 silver and 3 bronze. 8 total medals, but it's those 4 golds for New Zealand that puts them right up on top. Japan, dominant force with several trade teams and their national program as well. Canada, good performance for 2 gold medals for them. And Australia, Germany and Malaysia coming up with 1 gold each. It's been a fantastic competition. Thank you, Kate Bates. I'm sure you enjoyed the 3 days of competition. Looking forward to Hong Kong, perhaps?
I certainly have, Scott McGrory. What sensational racing we've seen in the first Nations Cup of the series. It's an Olympic year. It's going to be a cracker.
It absolutely is. Thanks for joining us, everyone. It's been a fantastic racing here at the Track Nations Cup. Tune in to the next one in Hong Kong next month.